Hello, I'm Regan, and before this video starts, I'm just letting you know that there may be swearing and that any threats that may occur are in-game threats. All of this was streamed live on my Twitch, so if you enjoyed, please subscribe for more. Anyways, enjoy the video.
Oh my god, I hate the title of this playlist. Perhaps we were friends first and lovers second, but then perhaps this is what lovers are. Good. I will cry.
Will you be fucked up if you can't be right?
Hey, yo. Hell yeah.
You're not in my Discord, Angel. I just realized that.
You
Meh.
told me not to.
I told you not to?
Yeah, you said it was cringe. You said don't join mine, mine is cringe. Or was it?
No, that sounds about right for me. That sounds about
I
right.
have Lean's, and then I think I was gonna do yours, and then you're like, no, mine's cringe. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, she do.
Like, I'm nice, I won't.
Let's go to
That was like the first.
Oh, she was still speaking. Oops. It's like, let's go to this PC.
I know, I got so scared, I was like, what?
What?
What's going on? Huh?
Hey?
Where did I go?
I didn't even realize you moved us because I'm in streamer mode.
Yeah. Oh no, where is it? Don't. Okay. Don't.
Bolt.
Don't.
Bolt.
No, shut up.
Bolt.
Don't.
Bolt.
Don't.
I'm saying dolt.
I know what you're saying, but I'm saying not to. Now there's water dripping down my fucking lip.
Oh my.
What the fuck? Seriously. Why did you have to do that?
I will choke, and not the good kind, so shut the fuck up.
My.
What the hell?
Yeah. Why am I not showing up in your chat ring? What the fuck? I'm not a real human.
I guess not, I'm so sorry.
He's bouncing.
Yeah,
It is bouncing.
Bro.
he do to bounce.
It's you.
I know it's me, but I tend to respond to objects with he. I don't know.
Do a little dancey dance.
I have other ones too, which I might not, like, my alerts all have one, although I just realized that they might not be working. So, like, if I go to my alerts, yeah, my things aren't working. Fudge. I have to flip tilting P.
Why can't I see your fucking activity page? No, I can't.
Whoa! I just accidentally made a copy of one of them.
Angel.
At that time I said Scoozy on time.
I know you did, but ew.
Ew.
Stop sending me the same thing, Alex. Alexander Hamilton. Hey.
I think the color. Because things happened, so I have to. Whatever, it's fine.
Bring over.
Fuffy was on the server today.
Wow!
What?
Wow!
Fuffy joined the game.
Neat.
Okay. Unexpected. Where's Puppy? There he is. X.
But the real question, did he die?
Did he? I can look it up.
Because I will actually be amazed.
He wasn't on for that long.
Oh, okay. Then never mind.
Oh, Shiv's in my chat. Hello, Shiv.
Shivy wibby. Shivy wibby. Shivy wibby.
Chibby. No, you want to know how it went when Fluffy was online?
What?
Like
Hello.
now I have the other gifts. Now
Hello?
now I'm so cool. And now I got the other ones. My stuff is working. Woo.
Okay. Shift said hello. King Fluffy, hi. Why are there cakes on Donald Duck's ass?
So he may apparently he may not have died, but he blew up some of the ground.
Yeah, he almost died.
Let's see.
Oh god, why does my eye do this? I hate it.
What was this? What's today? Yeah, it was. So that's Mac and Matthew. Yeah, Max and Reed. There we go.
He escaped death.
That's first. Okay. Should I start with a little look back as to what happened the last time?
Yeah.
A throwback. Is it a throwback?
Sure.
Yeah.
But Tommy died. That's the important thing.
Okay, spoiler. No.
Oh, are there
Wait,
any
God.
wait, are there any trigger warnings I should be doing?
Oh yeah.
Oh fuck. Okay, yeah. Death. It's just same as last time. Death.
Okay.
Fiction.
I just
Fiction. Agreed.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go back to where it was.
sorry.
Where's don't? There it is.
Dolt.
Don't.
Dolt.
No, shut up! You're annoying.
Toby Dolt.
Tommy, dipshit, not Toby.
Fuck's sake.
For fuck's sake. Let's see.
Wait, why is George
Okay.
wearing a corset?
Ayo.
It's his skin, not actually him.
Okay.
So that would
Nope.
been kind of
No, that's
interesting
good.
too.
Yeah. Okay. Passerine. Technoblade went flying and crashed against the cot right behind him. Wilbur's breath caught as he watched the cot tremble and then collapse. No! Technoblade reached his arm out, but he wasn't fast enough. Tommy's limp body fell to the floor with a hollow thud. For a moment all was quiet. There was only the distant rumble of thunder, so far away now, as Technoblade and Wilbur simply stared at Tommy's body lying in the dirt before them, like abandoned refuse. Like a toy once loved, now broken, discarded by a careless toddler's fickle hands. He hated himself for it, but his first instinct was to search the room for his father. He met his father's eyes as the old king slowly rose from his seat, his mouth a thin line of disapproval, always disapproval. The voice is his. Even now, especially now. Wilbur wrenched his gaze away from his father, only to be met with Technoblade, his pale face a study in grief. What the hell did we just do? Technoblade whispered, almost too quiet to be heard over the pounding rain. But Wilbur was already rushing to his feet before Technoblade could say another word. Wilbur ran. Don't! The warning was soft, but brooked no argument. Techno stopped at the edge of the tent where he'd be readying to chase after Wilbur, turning towards the sound of Phil's voice. Phil's had gathered Tommy's body into his arms, but he was looking right at Techno. He needs his space, Phil continued, his blue eyes almost graying the dim light. How would you know? Techno wanted to say, but his gaze fell and caught on Tommy. What was left of his anger evaporated into mist as he took in the state of his pupil. The blood and mud still on his skin and clothes. The dagger still protruding from his small, unbreathing chest. Phil held the boy with infinite gentleness. Tommy's head nestled against the crook of his arm, Tommy's cheek pressed against his chest, exactly like how one would hold a newborn babe. Techno wondered when the last time Phil had held Tommy like that, if Tommy even allowed him to over the age of 3, and realized it did not really matter. A father's arms never forgot the shape of a child. Not that Techno knew anything about being a father or being a son. Techno nodded begrudgingly at Phil's and we need to clean Tommy. Phil looked down at the body in his arms, his expression cloudy. I suppose we should. They moved quietly, carefully. Techno grabbed the cloth he dropped during his tussle with Wilbur and went to wet it in the rain again, lingering in the cold to let the raindrops wash away the blood on his knuckles. Wilbur's blood. His stomach tightened as blood-stained water dripped from his hands, but in a few moments, his hands were clean once more. When he turned back to Tommy and Phil, he'd found that Phil had taken a knife from Tommy's chest. Is this yours? Phil asked bitterly, running his hand over the knife-carved handle. You should know, Techno said. You gave it to me. Phil looked up in surprise. Techno could only shrug, unsure of where they stood now with each other. It was a long time ago, Techno said. You gave me a whole set. During the... Yes, Techno cut him off. My parents just got home, I'm sorry.
No
During that
worries.
time... Yeah. I don't have makeup on, I realize. Well, no.
Okay.
For the first time, Phil seemed to look his age, ancient and weathered
Yeah.
by his endless years. Techno could see him remembering it all, their empire of blood and glory, broken only by silent months of warm companionship. It seemed their bodies recalled just as much as their minds did, because they slipped easily into their grim work, side by side, never needing to speak a single word. As Phil combed the dirt out of Tommy's hair, Techno scrubbed at the stains on his arm, at the stubborn one of his cheek. And when Techno's breathing began to slow at the sight of the jagged wound on Tommy's chest, Phil silently worked Tommy out of his torn shirt and into a fresh one that did not bear the scars of their battle. Then they stepped back, surveying
Surveying.
their work. Tommy was polished. Tommy was spotless. Tommy was dead. Of all the things that could have broken him, Techno didn't understand why it had to be the sight of Tommy actually looking clean. He'd held it together when they were walking back to camp. He'd held it together when Wilbur pinned him with an accusation that simply echoed what the voices had been saying for years. Monster, monster, monster. He'd killed 1,000 men, seen allies eviscerated, and witnessed the fall of kingdoms. He'd seen Phil's anew. He'd seen the world end 100 times over and watched its people rebuild it over and over while he stood back, helpless, wanting to scream at them for being foolish, but also yearning with all his might to be able to love something enough to love what grew from its ruins. And looking at Tommy's peaceful face was what finally made Technoblade, Emperor of Ice, Blood God, Destroyer of Worlds, cry. He stood over Tommy's body and let the tears fall. He felt himself come undone with grief and guilt, misery and madness. And all at once he understood. He understood the anguish in the war's god's eyes. He understood the pain of the widows and orphans he'd left in his wake. He understood the agony of an entire world brought to his knees before a merciless God. And he felt it all. A hand closed around his trembling shoulder. Techno. Phil's voice was a distant thing. We need to talk. Talk? Techno rolled around, shrugging Phil's hand off his shoulder. The other god simply backed away, giving Techno his space. Techno hated that almost as much as the blank look on Phil's face. What is there to talk about? About Phil's swallow, leaning against the table as if he could not bear his own weight any longer. About why I left. Your son is dead. The word stayed like ash on his tongue. His corpse is right in front of you, and you want to talk about yourself? Philza flinched, but that was the extent of his reaction. This is important. You have to understand. What is there left for me to understand? It's not over. Phil's eyes bored through him. The war isn't over. Techno exhaled heavily. Don't screw with me right now. I'm done. I'm finished. Would it help? Philza said slowly. If I told you the leader of the Green Army, its general, its ruler, whatever, is still out there. Techno blinked, hot tears still stinging his eyes. What? Phil's lip drew into a thin line, a habit Techno recognized from the Empire days as something Philza did when he was trying not to scream. I left for 1,000 different reasons, Techno. When she died, I just knew. Though the pain of losing her was more than I could bear, I knew something worse would come. And it did come, sooner than I expected, but it came. He glanced at Tommy, his expression undecipherable. Her death destroyed me, but I knew the day I lost my sons would be the day I destroyed the world. His eyes slid to Techno. You understand that, I think. I do. Technoblade did not want to agree with him on anything, but there was no other explanation for the voice slowly getting louder and louder inside his head. He was beginning to lose himself. He already had. If he'd heard Wilbur like that, it had only been a few hours. There was no telling what he could do, what he would become later. He stared at Filza for once, realizing that the Angel of Death might be called that for a reason. We gods are different. Our grief is infinite, but so is our power. Filza looked down at his hands. No being should have been the no being should have both. Grief in a mortal already does so much fucking damage. In us, it will be 1,000 times worse. So I did the only thing I felt could save me, save everyone from my grief. Blue eyes found red. Have you heard of the Green God, Technoblade? Techno found himself nodding. The Green God, an infamous force, but a mystery at all. Technoblade had found a name carved into trees older than civilization and written into the mortal's holy text. Filza smiled. The Green God could bring him back. The rest of the world fell away, and in its place, hope. That's why a single tear, the last of its kind, the last Techno could give, fell down Techno's cheek, warm and light. That's why you aren't breaking down right now? Oh, Filza gave him a sad smile. Believe me, old friend, I am completely losing it. I just had more practice at hiding it than you. Knowing I can revive my son doesn't do shit for me, for the pain of seeing him die in the first place. And your wife? That sobered Filza quickly. I don't know. The texts I read, and there were millions, had conflicting stories about the Green God's rules. What he can and can't do. They all agree he's powerful, even more powerful than you and me combined, I reckon, but he can bring back Tommy, and right now that's the only thing that matters. Techno was quiet for a moment, simply processing the weight of Filza's revelation. Then he said, couldn't you have said all that before I broke Wilbur's face? Filza grimaced. I'm sorry, I was, well, losing it. As I said, you know me. Techno nodded. I do know you. Always gone in the aftermath, aren't you? Techno. You could have stayed to explain, Techno said quietly. Or he could have taken me with you. They both knew he wasn't talking about just Tommy anymore. Filza shook his head sadly. What gave me the strength to leave that night was my wife died. Techno was the knowledge that you were staying behind. You were I'd seen what you were becoming to the boys, and what the boys were becoming to you. I knew I could leave because they had you. But who did I have to? Techno demanded. Phil's eyes widened. Techno, that's me and you, Techno went on, not hearing anything beyond the pounding of his own heart. That's what you said. So were so where were you when I was crashing through an entire library's worth of books on history and politics and goddamn etiquette? Fuck. Etiquettes? Just to fit in a life I never asked for. Where were you when Tommy was waking up from nightmares almost every night, or when Wilbur was pulling his hair out of over being king at 16? Where were you when the voice got so loud for the both of us that we had to take turns reminding each other to breathe? There was a sharp crack startling both Techno and Filza. They looked down at the table Filza had been leaning on, only to find a chunk of it had broken clean off in Filza's hand. Oh. Filza stared uncomprehendingly at the cracked piece in his hand. That's... He looked helplessly at Techno. What do I do now? Technoblade crossed his arms. Apologize for one thing. For the table, or for leaving? At Technoblade's unimpressed look, Filza winced. Sorry, that was my awful attempt at humor, I suppose. He took a deep breath, dropping the broken piece from his hand. I know I have a lot to be sorry for, he began. Techno sighed. There's going to be a but now, isn't there? But, Filza continued, meeting Techno's disappointing stare head on, something close to sadness flickering over his face. We have the rest of our lives for my atonement?
Atonement, maybe?
Atonement? Okay. I will apologize to you every minute of every day. Once this is all over, I will never stop trying to make it up to you, but it will have to wait once we're safe. Once we're all home. He glanced pointedly at Tommy, then back at Techno. Like I said, this war isn't over. The Green God is still out there. This was simply his invitation. An invitation, Techno thought. About the thousand of corpses, enemy and ally, and buried underneath the rubble of exploded mountains. His trident and whip still slick with blood. What had the war god said? I'm merely a pawn in this game. Is this all a joke to him? Filson nodded tightly. He is more god than the both of us. You calling me immortal, Filza? That depends, Filza smiled gently. Do you think it's an insult? Techno did not reply. Instead, he turned towards the front of the tent to the rain still raging outside. Someone needs to find Wilbur. Filza found him at the very edge of the hill, kneeling over a cluster of blue flowers, the rain pouring over his shoulders. He seemed numb to the cold, to everything entirely, but when Filza spread his wings over him, keeping the downpour away, his dark eyes flickered to his father. Just for a second, just for a heartbeat, but it was acknowledgement, which was more than Phil could have ever hoped for. Techno's words echoed in his head, each syllable leaving bleeding wounds that Phil would never show. Techno had already suffered so much, too much. Phil would rather die than add to that. Whatever apology he could come up with now would be meaningless, a small pathetic scratch against an iceberg of his own, making actions, after all, spoke louder than words. And Philza was nothing if not a man of action. King at 16, Techno had said, as if it was the worst thing to be. Now looking down at the sun, Philza knew it to be true. Wilbur was Wilbur was holding his own hand in his lap. In the dark, Phil could just barely make out a jagged, barely healed scar on his palm. He wanted to ask a million things at once. Are you okay? Who did that? What happened? Will you ever forgive me? Forgive me? Forgive me? But he held his silence. Even if it was the second most painful thing he had ever done, he waited and waited. He would wait until the world ended, if that was what it took. And then eventually Wilbur spoke. It really was meant to be. I'm sorry, Phil asked gently. Yeah, Wilbur said heavily. You should be. Will, why didn't you visit? Wilbur asked suddenly. Overhead, lightning arched across the midnight sky, and Phil finally allowed himself to really look at his son. His jaw was sharper, his shoulder broader, but underneath the blood and grime and the haunted eyes, it was still his boy, his Wilbur, terrified of the dark, or even write a letter, anything. Phil's heart shattered. Because if I allowed myself that foot in the door, I knew I wouldn't have had the courage to leave again. And did you ever think of us? Of course, every second of every day. I never thought of you, Wilbur said. Or at least I tried not to. It was hard. I saw you everywhere. In the paintings, in the garden, down every hallway, in Tommy's eyes, in Techno's words. He closed his scarred hand so tightly that the wound had opened up once more, spilling blood onto the grass. But what's strange is that I never saw you in me. Thunder echoed over the valley, but Philza barely heard it. I think that's a good thing, Wilbur. No, Wilbur gave a rueful shake. Rueful.
I don't know it.
I'm going to search it up.
I hate that I'm so unhelpful sometimes.
Rueful. Expressing sorrow or regret, especially in a wary or humorous way. Jesus Christ. Okay. No, Wilbur gave a rueful shake of his head. No, it's not. I'm tired of pretending it is. I'm tired of everything. I wish I could just be like you and leave it all behind without looking back. That was enough. Filson went and kneeled before Wilbur, his hands finding Wilbur's shoulders. Wilbur's expression crumpled, and Filson knew it wasn't just the rain dripping down his cheeks. Leaving you and Tommy, Filson said, almost killed me, Wilbur. But I knew I had to spare you from exactly this. He shook him lightly, desperately, just to get any sort of emotion behind those cool brown eyes. We can bring him back, Wilbur. This isn't the end. He told Wilbur of his plans, of the years he'd spent hunting down every lead and every whisper of the Green God, who could rewrite history, rewind death itself. I know, Filza said. I know this sounds does I know this doesn't absolve me of things I've done, leaving you when your mother had just I thought I was protecting you from the world, but I should have understood earlier. You are my world. You and Techno and Tommy. And after this, after the Green God gives us your brother back, we can go home together. And you can be Prince Wilbur again, if you want. Or you could go somewhere else, find a place nobody knows our names, and just be. For a while, Wilbur was silent again. Speak, Phil said back. Please talk to me. At last, Wilbur said. You know, children don't really care about why their parents leave. They only care that they did. It's a blessing, I suppose, that I never truly was a child, even when I was young. He nodded once, almost to himself. And how sure are you that the Green God will give us anything after all he's done? Because I'll make him, the angel of death vowed. Wilbur scoffed. Right. Techno told me about you, you know? Well, I guess you told me about Techno first, with your bedtime stories. Every time I pray to the gods, I've only ever been praying to you. I'm not much of a... What? Pious. I'm not much of a pious man now. Wilbur gave him a
Hi, Ulysses.
but I suppose fate is stronger when tested right. Before Filza could say anything, Wilbur threw his arms around his father, putting it into an embrace. Filza stilled, a frozen, unmoving statue in his son's arms, and then he cracked. He leaned into Wilbur's own arms, going around Wilbur and pulling him close. He still remembered the last time Wilbur had allowed himself to be hugged like this by his father. He was older now and heavier, but that would never matter. Phil had never forgotten his initial hesitation at holding Tommy. That shame would follow him forever. But after that, he promised to hold his sons for as long as they would let him, and he had sworn never to be the first one to let go. Phil had spent 9 years, 10 months, 3 days, and 16 hours away from the eldest son, and now in the rain and in the dark where nobody could see him cry, he was finally home. Wilbur buried his face in his father's shoulder, clinging on for dear life. This isn't forgiveness, he whispered. I know, Phil said, whispered back, and you have a hell of a lot more explaining to do. I know. And when we get Tommy back, you'll have to bend over backwards to appease him. The boy holds grudges longer than I do. I know, Wilbur, I know. Phil felt Wilbur not against him. Then that's where we'll start. When they returned, Technoblade was waiting at the mouth of their tent, the light behind him making him barely more than a shadow. In his left hand was a roll of bandages ready for Wilbur's nose. Wilbur found himself grinning, a quip already on his tongue, but was silenced as Techno crossed into the rain and wrapped Wilbur in his arms. Wilbur sunk wordlessly into the god's embrace, and both of them were finally warm. Forgiveness came easily with brothers, after all. The angel of death looked on quietly. He would not be welcome for this moment, not when there was too much between the three of them still. But he knew someday he would be again. One day, the four of them would be together in a home full of sunlight, looking forward to the distant time. Filza finally felt peace. Inside the tent, a golden-haired prince slept on. Chapter 5 done.
Also, Ulysses is here and says hi. King is here. It says hi. And yeah.
Hi, King. Hi, Ulysses.
I hope you guys are having a good day. We're reading Dream SMP fanfiction.
It's a good book. Angel?
Sorry, I'm muted.
I was like, you're both so quiet.
Yeah, I muted because I'm cutting stuff. So I've been like muted.
There's this thing was revving. Then I forgot to unmute.
It's fine. Regan, I'm sending you the new trigger warnings.
Alright.
Depictions of violence, aftermath of violence. Trigger warnings were Chapter 6. My palms and fingers still reek of gasoline. From thrown fuel to the fire pool. Oh yeah.
King's using it as a bedtime story. King's using our fit.
Yeah.
Alright. Bye, Ulysses. I'll see you Wednesday.
Bye, Ulysses. Okay. What the fuck?
What the fuck?
I don't want to know what their
Oh.
feces is about. Their brace thingies.
Yeah,
I
they're
have them
invisible
too.
braces.
No, the braces that you get after you're done with the normal braces.
Oh, I thought they were like called invisible braces.
Oh.
I just have a retainer. I didn't get any of this.
I'd never had braces.
I need to get a new retainer.
I had a brace, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm on caps. Okay. Ooh, okay. Wait, how long is this chapter? This chapter is alright. This one will be an easy read. What time are we at now?
Your last one's gonna be the longest, I believe.
That
Yeah.
was just 30 minutes, and we still
Yeah.
have 3 hours, basically, so.
We have enough time.
That would be enough.
And it will be enough. Fame. Amen. Hold on. Good. Okay.
Okay.
There would be no grand speeches this time. Sabo knew. Instead, they formed a grim line like souls waiting at the gates of the underworld, where they would find either judgment or absolution. The only sound were tired murmurs and quiet thuds as the surviving soldier of the royal army piled what remained of their camp into carts and wagons. Both the wounded and the dead were placed gently on beds of hay, with blankets covering the worst of their injuries. A futile?
Yeah.
A foot. Fuck. A futile no, a futile courtesy for an army that had seen worse just the day before. It found a few survivors during their search last night, but as Tubbo had feared, there were mostly corpses to carry back. Sometimes not even a whole body, sometimes just an arm, a leg, a single strand of hibiscus pink hair, a wrinkled hand still clutching a bloodstained broadsword. A few volunteers would stay at the valley to continue the bleak search, but for most of the royal army, Tubbo included, it was time to head home. Go home. He'd only left a few weeks before, but he could barely conjure it up in his mind. It seemed to him like everything before the war was a fake, unfamiliar relic, preserved behind fog glass. As much as Tubbo pressed against it, he could only see hazy glimpses of what lay behind. A scribbled letter left on his sister's bedside table to explain where he was going. What? Oh no, sorry. What lay behind? A fractured memory of a quiet town, a small house at the outskirts, his family. He had left for the war in the middle of the night with only a hastily scribbled letter left on his sister's bedside table to explain where he was going, what he wanted to do. I will protect this kingdom. Protect you. He wondered if she could still recognize him when he could no longer recognize himself. Wasn't that what family was for? Weren't they supposed to know him, especially if he felt like a stranger in his own body? Tubbo tipped his head up to the sky, letting the faint rays of dawn warm his frozen limbs. There had been a terrible storm last night, but the only traces of it today were the dewdrops clinging to grass and the mud slick beneath Tubbo's boots. He shook himself out of his reverie. There was more work to be done. There was always more work to be done. Slowly, Tubbo weaved around the bustling panoply. Panoply? Monopoly? uh, panoply. Panoply. Oh, nope. Panoply. Definition. Panoply. An extensive or impressive collection. Okay. Tubbo weaved around the bustling panoply of people and carts, helping where he could, tying down boxes of supplies, feeding the horses and checking their bridles, rewriting someone's arm sling, anything that kept him moving, anything that distracted him from the gnawing feeling in his gut. He looked over his shoulder at the valley behind them, expecting to see a green-clad soldier crawling across the rubble towards him, reanimated by vengeance, but there was nothing but open air and a flock of birds circling lazily overhead. Ca- Carrion crows. Carrion crows?
Carrying crows.
Crows. I knew that. Carrion crows or vultures. It didn't matter which they would be feasting well. Didn't matter which they would be feasting well today. Drink. Instinctively, Tawa's eyes found themselves drifting down, and that's when he saw them. A simple horse-drawn cart, indistinguishable from its neighbors, aside from the two people sitting over it like mourners at a grave. A king and a general, twins in their misery. Tubbo felt an odd pang in his chest as he realized who exactly was in the cart, who exactly they were saving and saying goodbye to. As Tubbo watched, the king leaned over the cart as if he was going to pull himself in with his dad, but then he pulled back, his shoulder trembling and his hands deep inside his pockets. Tubbo wondered if they were shaking too. For a moment it seemed as if the general might reach towards the king, but instead he pulled something from his own pocket and reached into the cart. When he leaned away, his hands were empty and still. The general nodded at the king, and then they were off, disappearing down the hill and heading north, the opposite direction of home. It might have been a trick of the light, but Tubbo would swear until his deathbed that he saw one of the birds wheel away from its flock, its obsidian wings gleaming as it trailed their two-person procession. But then he blinked, and king, general, and bird were gone. And though Tubbo knew the affairs of royalty were not his to investigate, he found himself walking towards the cart, pulled forward by gravity he could not ignore. In between one breath and the next, Tubbo was staring down at the face of a dead prince. Tubbo had seen 100 corpses. Ow, I just bit my own tongue.
Oof.
Tubbo had seen 100 corpses. They fought against him during the battle, or he pulled them free from a rock and dirt, but a few had looked as peaceful as the prince in death. It was almost as if he was sleeping, his mortal wound hidden by his clothes, and a red and blue coat tucked up to his chin. His head rested against soft hay. Again. Good. His head rested against soft hay, a shade darker than his own golden hair. Tubbo could almost see himself, shaking the prince awake, and the prince would blink drowsiness from his eyes. Ask Tubbo who he was, and Tubbo would say, a friend. And maybe in another life that wouldn't be a lie. Tubbo's cheeks felt warm. He knew he must be crying. He knew he must be sad. But for whom? Who was he even mourning? His kingdom's prince? Yes, but the harsher truth, a stranger. A stranger whose laughter still faintly echoed in Tubbo's head like a half-remembered song from a distant childhood. A stranger who gambled his life for his kingdom and lost it, a heartbeat away from victory, if this bitter thing could even be called that. A stranger that felt like no stranger at all, but a stranger nonetheless, Tubbo reminded himself. And through a blur of tears, Tubbo saw what the general had left behind, tucked gently behind the prince's ear like a final offering, a single yellow rose. Twink.
You mean Dweem?
You're so annoying, and for what?
Funny joke, y'all!
No, I hate it. Who put something in quotes and then took it out?
Me. Because
Oh.
I meant to put Lily's thing, and I was like, wait, why am I in quotes? Yeah, I just said Pog in it, and I was like, oh,
Pog
that's not
in it.
particularly- Poggy in it. More like dead in it.
By Angel.
What the hell? What the fuck?
Rude. Oh my
God.
bitch. You're an actual bitch.
Funny joke, yeah.
And that was not.
No! Not funny.
No.
Hey, you still come back. You still come back.
Did you know that? Oh my god, that went forever. I'm dying. Oh, it went down the wrong hole in my throat. That
Oof.
hurts.
You rented the wrong hole.
By Angel.
Oh wait, hold on. That's not meant that way.
Not even no, just wait. Like what the hell, bro? Choke. Choke on
Funny
that.
yo,
Great.
papa.
Are you a swallower or a spitter?
Neither.
Oh. You just keep it in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like in my cheeks.
Oh yeah. You're gonna become a hamster or a squirrel. I hate that
Wow.
word.
A squirrel.
No, shut up.
what?
I hate the word squirrel. I hate it. Oh, I have a little thing in my hair. My hair is. It's awful.
It's glorious.
You know, I hate my hair at the
No.
moment too, because it's not doing my bang thing, and it's just not doing it.
Yeah.
Then again, I need to cut my bangs. This is my actual bang.
Right.
It was so much shorter than that. As you
Oh
can
my
tell,
God.
it was like right there. It,
Yeah.
it should have been this long.
Yeah. Justin Bieber, 2014.
Gross.
Why is she so confused about us having braces?
I don't know.
No. I think it's like I think it's like the
Get the
mentality mostly. It's like when you have braces, you don't see anyone else having braces.
Yeah.
Like personally, I've never seen anyone with braces. Like
Yeah,
actually,
what?
I've never actually really seen a person with braces on in real life. Weirdly enough.
You're just weird.
Yeah.
But then again, my school is super poor.
Mm-mm.
So. And then of course not a lot of adults have it. Or if they
Move
do,
here.
it's like invisible.
Nah, move here.
Yeah.
Half the adults
braces
here
are
have
not
braces.
cheap.
No, they're not.
They're,
Oh
like,
yeah, but
super
Americans
expensive.
fucking
Yeah,
yeah.
it's skyrockets. So
you're just fucked.
yeah.
Yeah.
American
Hold on.
healthcare.
How much?
Yeah.
How
Like
much
here,
is it?
it's like healthcare's fine. To be
Oh,
honest.
Reed
I
didn't.
don't know. Really didn't.
Yeah, 2,500 to 7,000.
Yeah, I think we got it to like around 3,000 maybe with like insurance and things. Like
Yep.
uh
With
Yeah.
insurance, it'd be half the cost, most likely.
it depends on the insurance.
Yeah, metal
Um,
braces are that much.
I'm gonna go look it up now.
Cremated braces are almost 8,500. Oh,
You're
but
so rich.
after insurance is 1,500 to $3,750. Oh my god, why am I so red?
I just said it.
Yeah, it shouldn't be this red. It wasn't this red before. Here it is. Boop, 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 boop. Now I'm white.
Oh, we also, if you did community service, you could get money off your braces. So, I did that.
For fucking what?
If you commit to 40 hours of community service during the first 16 months of treatment, we got money off our braces. I worked at the food bank.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It was 20 to 30% off. So it was a good deal.
How big is that drink? Like, what size is that?
A large.
That's not an extra large?
No.
Oh wait, we got that. We got rid of that. Never mind.
Yeah, this is a large.
This is a large.
This is water. Oh god. I just wanted to feel included, okay?
This is water.
And ow! I just hit my table.
Are you gonna say something else? Go. What? What?
What was I gonna say?
I hit my tit.
Why?
Guys?
Is that something I say usually?
No.
So why are
But
you
weirdly
saying
enough, I thought you
that?
said. Because it hurts. It hurt. It hurts.
I don't know. I've never slapped my tits. I just got stuck in my chest. Have you ever had that happen though? Like that hurts.
Oh yeah.
Had what happen? I was too busy laughing at Angel's facial expression.
Like just like bending over and accidentally getting your tits stuck between your desk and your chest. Like that hurts. Ring is like, no.
I have tinies.
That's fun.
I have tinies. It doesn't work.
Why were we talking about this instead?
Great question.
Okay. Oh yeah. That in it. Fuck. Bada boom, bada boom. Yeah. Oh no, I can't talk about that on stream. Never mind. Okay, where is it? Hello? Inside? No. Wait, is it channel on the... Yeah, it is my channel in the lyrics. Is that working? Nina's massacre. Oh lord, what's getting I can help for credit. Okay. That's good. Good. It would be a long journey. It had taken the Green Army more than a month to make the same trip, but as Techno had pointed out, they had been slowed by their foot soldiers and their sheer numbers. Techno and Wilbur had neither. With the 2 horses Techno had smuggled from the camp, they could maybe half the time if they rode like hell. But it still wouldn't be fast enough for Wilbur. Each minute was another where he hadn't saved his brother yet, and each second crashed against him like waves wearing a cliffside down to the pebbles and chalk. He was glad he didn't bring a pocket watch with him. Its constant ticking would have driven him to madness. As if you're not mad already, the voices echoed, but they were almost drowned out by the wind whistling past Wilbur's ears, as he spurred his horse on faster, following the pink banner of Techno's hair flying behind him as he rode ahead. He tied his hair back in a simple knot. There would be no intricate braids for a long while, no flowers heavy with meaning. Wilbur had come to realize that death wasn't a single yawning chasm, but a collection of small punctured wounds slowly tearing through the mundane. But he'd fix it. They would fix it. Wilbur had known at once what the Green God had meant by his invitation. There was only one place he could be inviting them to. The place that started it all, the place the voices had whispered about in self-satisfied tones, where the Green Army had first struck. The town at the northern border. It was only fitting that Wilbur's first grand failure would be where he would rewrite the second. The Green God would bring his brother back and all would be well. The specifics Wilbur would figure out later. For now, he would write. The north was a brutal land. Wilbur had averted his eyes as they passed underneath the shattered points of the mountains that bordered the Blue Valley. But the smell of blood and sulfur had stayed with him until they broke into the tundra beyond. And then...
What?
Then there was a rolling fields of grass cut between the green of life and the fading reds of death. There were no towns, no cities, no travelers to meet them on the overgrowth path that only Techno seemed to be able to follow. They'd stopped only to rest their horses once, with the sun right above them. They'd stopped under the shade of a boulder, leaning against its craggy surface, with their shoulders slightly touching. Techno had pulled his shirt over his head to wring the sweat out of it, and Wilbur had caught sight of bruises and wounds that marked
Mard.
his old friend's weary body. You're staring, Techno accused without turning around to face him. Just thinking, Wilbur replied, his gaze catching a particularly nasty scar running down the length of Techno's spine. I always thought gods were invincible, but you're just as breakable as humans, aren't you? Techno scoffed, putting his shirt over his head once more. Maybe not just as. A killing blow for you would be a scratch for me. So whatever left those scars on you, they were awful then? Techno was silent for a moment. I've lived a very long life, Wilbur, he finally said, glancing at Wilbur with an indecipherable gleam. Indecipherable?
Indecipherable. Yeah.
No.
Indecipherable?
Indecipherable?
Hmm?
Indecipherable. With an indecipherable gleam in his eyes. Awful things come with the territory. Wilbur swallowed, unsure of where he wanted to take the conversation, but also willing to let go of the vulnerability. Of the vulnerability that Techno so rarely shared. But gods can be killed. Filsa, who killed that war god. Neither of them missed the tremor in Wilbur's voice as he named his brother's killer, or the hesitation with which he said his father's name, but they both silently elected to ignore it. Techno took a tentative sip out of his water container, squinting into the distance as he thought. It would take a considerable amount of force to kill a god, Techno said slowly, his brows furrowing. And your father, Phil, he's that strong, huh? Wilbur tipped his head back and searched the skies until he found a distant speck of his father hovering overhead. His obsidian wings spread wide. They had not spoken more than a few cautious sentences to each other since the night of his father's return, and Wilbur knew it would be a long time yet before he could look at his face without feeling like he'd been punched in the gut. Wilbur had built stories around the man for years, justifications and explanations and vicious scenes where Wilbur screamed at him until his very lungs gave out. In a way, Wilbur was disappointed because Phil had turned out to be in the right. He'd left to save his sons, and now his abandonment was outweighed by the fact that he could bring Tommy back. How could Wilbur begrudge him for that? Wouldn't he have done the same? It was hard to hate someone when you saw sense in their actions, but damn it if Wilbur wasn't going to try his best to anyway. This isn't forgiveness, he told his father. He never added a yet. Even the mere possibility of absolution, Wilbur thought was more than Phil's had deserved. I died years ago. Wilbur shot Techno a confused glance, but Techno was still staring straight ahead, his eyes unseeing. That's what the war god said, I think. I think it was easier to kill him than I think he let us do it. Techno closed his eyes as a sudden gust of wind blew through the tundra, raising the hairs on the back of Wilbur's neck. Vengeance is a powerful motivator. It's like a fire you have to keep feeding or else it burns out. Or burns you. He offered the canteen to Wilbur, who took it and brought it quietly to his own lips. I think the war god simply ran out of kindling. Kindling?
Yeah. Kindling. I
Or
think.
maybe he just got tired. What?
I was saying I think I just pronounced it wrong, because I put more, like, emphasis on on pieces, but yeah, you had it.
What?
What?
I just read the quote. Like, why am I technically quote? What did I do? I'm just reading. Quotes will be for another time to read out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I think No, hey, I'll talk to you about it later. I can't do that. Fuck you. My eyebrows don't work like that. Blah, 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 blah. Or maybe he just got tired of tossing shit into the flames. Techno let out a greedy laugh? Why are you laughing?
I'm sorry, my mom's making comments while you're reading.
Oh.
I had to mute
A
myself
breathy
like 5
laugh,
minutes ago.
maybe? Because not wrong, but
I had to mute myself like a couple minutes ago because of you talking about Technoblade having like an intimate moment. She just goes, "Oh, fuck you!"
Oh my god, I love
That's
your mom.
Dying laughing.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, sorry.
Techno let out a... What was it? A
breathy.
breathy?
Yeah,
Let out
It's
a
a weird
breathy
word.
laugh. Yeah. Guess we'll never... Guess we'll never know. That's literally what it says. Guess we'll never know. He pushed himself off the rock and began heading towards their grazing horses. If you keep stalling with dumb questions, we'll reach the border by the time you're dust and bones. And I really don't want to be bargaining for 2 dead people, once already a hassle. Wilbur threw the canteen at his head, but Techno caught it out of the air effortlessly without looking back. Show up. Wilbur grumbled, but he was smiling for the first time in what felt like centuries. I heard that, Angel. I heard that. Oh my god.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh my god.
But this is going great so far. A great stream.
Have you been reading almost an hour? This chapter
Yep,
has been-
almost an hour.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This won't last, the voice reminded him as he followed Techno back to their mounts?
Yeah.
Yeah? The stage is set for a tragedy, Prince. This hungry audience will accept nothing else. Screw you and your stage, Bilbo thought, catching Techno's eyes as the general hauled himself up onto the horses?
Hold.
Hauled himself up onto his horse. Once upon a time, Wilbur would have cowered at the echoing threats inside his head, but now he stared right back at the monster and he refused to be the first to flinch. And they rode on. They slept under the stars, or more accurately, Wilbur slept fitfully, tossing and turning with nightmares. It would be naive to think that he could find peace anywhere, even in the oblivion of sleep. If it had been his call, he would have ridden through the night without pause. Good. But Techno had vehement... You're fucking...
Feminently.
Hold on. Vehemently.
That does not. Angel, you agree with me here. That is not the right
No,
pronunciation,
my mom
right?
said something very questionable just now, so
What?
I had to text her. It sounded like she said hairy buttholes.
What?
That's all. Like, did you just say that? That was like a couple seconds ago, too. I'm like, huh? That's not mom's. That's not something mom says.
Good. Vehemently, in a forceful, passionate, or intense manner with great feeling.
It doesn't feel like the right pronunciation, but it's the right word.
That's what Google's telling me.
Google's
always
right. Yeah.
That's
Especially when it's English.
Go.
Might sound weird, but usually it's right.
Yeah. But Techno had vehement... Fuck's sakes! Techno had vehemently fed out. What the fuck? Fed out? Vetoed? Why? Why do you put 2 of these? No, not veto. Fuck your mom. Vetoed. Veto?
Like vetoed?
Yeah. Vetoed.
Yeah, vetoed.
Hmm.
But that doesn't
Veto.
that doesn't feel right in a sentence. But that is the
Doesn't
word.
feel right for the time period.
What?
It also, yeah, it doesn't feel right for the time period either. The confusion on your
Just going with
face.
it. We're just going with
Yeah,
it.
just
Yeah. But Techno had
vehemently.
No, vehemently. But Techno had why? Vehemently. But Techno had vehemently vetoed the ID. Wilbur tried to argue, but Techno was quick to shut him down with, "You are useless to me, sleep. Oh, you are useless to me, sleep deprived." That was really loud. Oh my god. Damn. I really didn't like that one, did you?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's funny.
Oh. Oh.
Well, Angel's mom be playing some Fortnite, guys.
Yeah.
Something good happened. Clap. She went, yes.
Yes. Over the years, Techno had come to learn that the only way to get a man like Wilbur to concede was to cut deep and cut fast. By the way, Wilbur's jaw tightened and Techno knew he'd hit his mark. He would apologize, but if he were to be honest, he'd do almost anything to get Wilbur to rest. Despite the divinity in his vein, divinity?
Divinity.
Yeah,
Divinity. What did you say, Egg?
Divinity.
Okay, I
I
thought
probably
you
said it wrong.
Yeah.
No, if anything, Angel said it more right than I did.
Oh, well, divinity in his veins. Even Techno felt like he was fraying at the edges. He couldn't even begin to imagine what the past week had done to a mortal like Wilbur. Wilbur had begrudgingly slid down from his horse and laid himself on the cold ground of the tundra with a pile of blankets. "I'll keep first watch," Techno said, knowing he wouldn't wake Wilbur until dawn. Wilbur nodded, knowing the same, and by the time Techno heard telltale signs of a winged god descend, Wilbur was asleep. Techno spared Phil's a glance as he settled himself against a pile of their supplies. His blonde hair was wind-tossed and his clothes ruffled, but for a man who'd spent the day close to the sun than the highest soaring birds could even fathom, there was relatively nothing out of place except his eyes. Techno had never seen a god more. Fuck's sakes, I was trying so hard to continue. Oh my god.
Just take a moment. Just take a moment.
Oh,
Just hear
the wind god for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Play very good part, Toby or Tommy.
Oh my god.
God.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
She'd be a great Tomo, wouldn't she?
Oh.
Oh god. Techno had never seen a god more wary, but then again he hadn't looked at the mirror in a while. "Already thinking about leaving again?" Techno mused. Phil turned his gaze away from Wilbur's sleeping form. "No," was his simple reply. Techno stared at the man before him, wishing he could believe him. Phil sighed as he sat down in the grass, crossing his legs under himself. For a while there was only the howling of the winds to fill the silence and the distant squeak of a squeak? SQUAWK.
Then
We're just saying squeak.
Okay.
The distant squeak of a bird on the hunt. And then Filsa said, "What was he like?" Techno looked up from where he'd been idly pulling at the grass beside him, as Filsa was looking at Wilbur again. his expression unreadable in the dim moonlight. Wilbur's face was a pale thing, and under the pile of blankets it was as if he wasn't even breathing. Techno looked quickly away. What do you mean? Techno prompted when Philza seemed content just to stare at his son until morning. Blinking slowly, Philza amended. Amended? Tommy. What was Tommy like when he was growing up? Techno's nails dug into the dirt. Neither Techno nor Wilbur had spoken Tommy's name. Philza hadn't spoken at all, mostly because he was determined to keep as much distance as possible between him and Wilbur. But for whose benefit Techno didn't know, but now the name stood between them, as heavy as a curse, as hopeful as a prayer. Techno turned Philza's question over, treading the line between the truth and what he wanted to say. There's not much overlap. His son's childhood was luxury. Philza has squandered away the moment he wrote the pathetic excuse of a goodbye letter, and would take more than a few weepy conversations during a storm to crawl back into Wilbur and Techno's good graces. Eventually, Techno shrugged. Tommy was Tommy. Philza nodded as if he understood enough. But how could he? He'd left when Tommy was 6 and returned just in time to watch Tommy die. Tommy had lived a life, however short, between those 2 points. Philza didn't know pity. Petulant?
Say that again?
Petulant? Petulant? Petulant. I think I've heard it before. Petulant. Of a person or the manner, childishly sulky or bad-tempered. Aww. Petulant. Regan, you're petulant. No. Oh my god. Oh god. Is my camera frozen?
Yeah, your camera's on.
Is my camera frozen for you guys?
Oh, now it is.
Oh no, it died.
It's like a kitty.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, she said scary buttholes, not hairy buttholes.
That still doesn't make it better. Why did my Wi-Fi decide to die now? Right. YKET6N. Oh. Is it back? Is it back? Am I live?
No.
Nope. Nope, it keeps dying. Never mind. Petulant. Okay. Philza didn't know. Pity. Petulant. Passionate Tommy. Brave, bold. Belligerent? Belligerent? Fucking what? No? Okay.
Oh, I hiccuped. I didn't say no.
I know you hiccuped.
Oh, okay.
Belligerent. Okay. Brave, bold, belligerent Tommy. He hadn't been there to watch Tommy grow up. Hadn't been there to teach Tommy how. That was all Wilbur and Techno. Techno pulled a fistful of grass from the earth and tossed it lazily into the air. The wind picked up and blew it all north. Techno thought his words over until the grass leaf disappeared into the night. He was loved. That's the only thing you need to know. Philza tipped his head up to the stars and Techno turned away before the first of his tears could fall. Thank you, Techno. And they rode on. And on a still and silent night, a different night, over the sound of hooves, rhythmically. Huh?
You gotta pretend like a couple letters aren't there. Rhythmically.
rhythmically. Okay. The sound who's rhythmically striking the earth. A king turned to a god and asked, "Oh my god." Wait, can you guys still hear me, like, properly?
Yeah, we can still hear you properly.
Okay.
We just might be laughing more at Angel's mom than anything.
Oh, just Saya came
Yeah,
out.
I
He's
know,
like, why are
like-
you yelling so loud?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like, I heard a scream, like, everything was lagging for me, and then I heard a scream, and then you started laughing. I was like, I can't hear shit. Okay, now it's my Wi-Fi should be back up, okay. The king turned to a god, and asked, "What do you think death is like?" What do you ask? What if it's kinder to him? For a moment the king was a child again, clumsy and terrified. Every shadow was an enemy, and every heartbeat his last. What if it's better than this? And the god looked up at the blue and purple sky, stars chasing each other through the dark like a billion wayward children, with only the distant snow-capped mountains in the horizon as a reminder of the earth-bound fate. With the sweet air in his lungs and the steady trot of his steed, the god could almost see himself drifting between galaxies, wandering, but for once not alone. "Wilbur," said the god, "there's nothing better than this." And they rode on. The days turned into weeks, and Filsa watched from the skies as the tundra changed from alpine.
Yeah.
Okay. Alpine to. Where was I? Fuck. Alpine to polar. Shut up!
Where was I?
Green to white, grass to snow, cold to colder. They were getting close and it was getting harder to breathe. Wilbur and Techno had let their horses go the moment the ground turned slippery and were now slowly making their way through the frozen wasteland. With Wilbur bundled in fur and fleece, it became clear immediately that Wilbur was going to slow them down. He staggered after Techno, who stopped every few miles to let the young king catch up before they moved again. Left to their own devices, Philsa knew he and Techno could finish the journey faster, but if Phil knew that, then surely Wilbur did too. And although this angry, grieving man was almost a stranger to him, Philsa could almost picture Wilbur gritting his teeth as he forced himself to walk faster, walk further, driven by the same stubbornness and frustrated perfectionism that he employed into everything he'd ever done as a boy. Philsa followed them closely, flying lower and lower. If either of them asked, he would tell them it was because the air was getting thinner as they headed further north. But neither of them did, saving Phil the trouble of lying through his teeth. He lost count of how many times he'd caught himself looking at Wilbur, taking in his confident gait and his mess of brown curls and the dark lines under his eyes. He wished Wilbur would look back at least once, even if his stare was cold and hateful, just so Philsa knew Wilbur could still see him. Most days it felt as if he was mourning two dead sons instead of one. Techno was already a pink speck in the distance. He'd only just stopped to wait for Wilbur when it happened. There was a loud crack that reminded Philsa of breaking bones, and he looked down just in time to watch in horror as Wilbur fell through snow and ice, disappearing into freezing waters that waited below. Phil didn't think one moment he was in the sky, and the next he was hurtling towards the earth, crashing through the break in the ice that Wilbur had been standing on just seconds before. He felt the cold water envelop him, cold as death itself, but he was already searching the darkness for his son. His hands searched, desperate and clawing, following instinct. Philsa thought he'd forfeited long ago. "Please," he begged, the chill digging its cruel talons into his skin. "Please, please, not him too." Phil's fingers closed around a wrist, then a forearm, and then he was swinging upwards towards the faint light above, but Will was so heavy, weighing down by his bulky clothes, and the water was so cold, and Phil was reaching, and there was no air left in his lungs. A hand closed around his own, pulling him up the rest of the way. He broke through the surface, gasping, and hoisted Wilbur up onto solid ice before climbing after him. Phil dragged himself over to where Wilbur was laying, heedless of anything else. He kneeled down over his son, who was so pale and so still, his eyes closed just like his brother. No, Phil grabbed the knife tucked into his boot and began cutting away at Wilbur's wet clothes. The blade slashed through fleece and tore at the cloth, and Phil peeled it all away until Wilbur was left only in his dryer tunic. No, Phil curled his fingers around his opposite hand and began pushing down on Wilbur's chest, following the beat of his own frantic heart. No! Come on! Phil whispered under his breath, trying to keep count on his desperate compression, but unable to focus on anything but Wilbur's face, his dark hair dusted with white snow. Come on, Wilbur! Phil said, taking his voice breaking through the panic. You're going to break him. 18, 19, 20. Stay with me. My boy, stay with me. 25, 26, 27. A violent gasp tore past Wilbur's lips as his eyes flew open, staring up at the gray sky above, and then he was scrambling onto the side, coughing up water, trembling, choking on air, but alive. Phil let out a rattling breath as he fell back, feeling like he would have fallen out from under him and then came crashing back, burying him in dirt and ice. I almost lost him. The thought came at him like a knife to the chest. He stared down at his trembling hands, at its many scars and calluses.
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 At the small faded line right at the base of his pinky finger where Wilbur, at 2 years old, had bit him. He didn't even remember why Wilbur had been so angry at him then. Sometimes Phil thought toddlers were menaces, driven mostly by their bite-sized fury, but he recalled the look Wilbur had given him when he drew his bloody hand back. It wasn't fear exactly that he would get reprimanded. Even as young as he was, he knew, as all children should, that he was loved enough to be forgiven for anything. It was regret that he'd hurt his father, or regret that he didn't bite harder. Tilson never knew. It was the same look Wilbur was giving him now, a look that said, I'm sorry, and at the same time, I would die just to spite you. But the only thing Wilbur said out loud was a weak and tremulous?
Trembling.
No.
Spell. Tremulous. Yeah. You're supposed to be better at this than me, girls. Come on. But they're using words we don't know.
I can't
I'm
spell in my
dyslexic.
brain. I can't spell in my brain half the time.
Yeah.
When I hear words, I go, oh, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
That's why I have to ask like 6 times, how do you spell this? A,
Yeah.
A.
A. Tremulous. Shaking or quivering slightly.
Tremulous,
No.
You still haven't heard that word
Wilbur
before.
said out loud. What?
I was just saying that I still hadn't heard that word before. So
Now you have.
now I have.
Well.
I knew the word.
Uh,
Forgot about it.
But the only thing Wilbur said out loud was a weak and tremulous father. Before his eyes fluttered closed and he slumped back against the snow, his chest rising and falling softly asleep. Not dead. We have to get him out of the cold. Phil's eyes slipped to Techno, almost forgotten the other god was there, kneeling on the other side of Wilbur. If Phil had not known him for centuries, he would have missed the way Techno's eyes hardened as he wordlessly unclasped his cloak and wrapped it tightly around Wilbur. Techno lifted the sleeping man into his arms, Wilbur's head lolling against his shoulder as he began walking purposefully across the tundra once more, cautious this time of the thickness of the icy ground. Phil stared after him, his pulse still raising, surprised by the gentleness with which Techno had taken his son from him. An old conversation rose to the shallows of Phil's memory between the two immortals at the dawn of New Age. My people needed a leader.
Thank you, Evan, for the raid.
I didn't bring you because I don't know when to
We're
be
reading
leader.
Passerine.
But this time, Philza did not know which of them the accusation was for. He looked up into the distance. Somewhere out there was a town. In that town there was a god Philza had sacrificed his son's love for. A god that had the answer for every question Philza had ever asked himself. Even the question of whether it was all worth it. Was it worth Wilbur's anger? Was it worth a child who Philza could not witness? And then Philza remembered Tommy. In the precious moments they had before he bled out his brother's arms, and for him, Phil decided, he would abandon 1,000 kingdoms, and if his sons hated him for it, then at least they would be alive to do it, and at least they would have Technoblade. The angel of death rose to his feet. and they walked on. They found a cave a short walk later, half buried in snow, but re- relatively,
What?
Yeah,
relatively.
relatively, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not going awful. Um, yeah, we're reading Dream of Some Heat fan fiction. I'll probably log onto the server
They found a
soon
cave
to work
short-
on some
it was
stuff.
literally
But
just
hi,
a-
welcome to my stream.
They found a cave a short walk
yeah.
later, half buried in snow, but relatively warm inside. Techno sat Wilbur down in one
Hope
corner
you all
and
enjoy your
piled all
stay.
the spare furs from their packs on him. While Phil's focused on making a fire, well, Techno sat sitting down by Wilbur's feet and leaning against the cave wall, feeling lightheaded. He won't die of hypothermia, at least. In response, Wilbur sneezed in his sleep. Death by calm coolness and off the table, though, Techno amended. Not exactly going down in a blaze of glory, but I suppose no one really gets the death they want, or deserve. When his dry commentary was met only by silence, Techno turned to find Phil leaning over piles of sticks and cloth. He had flint in one hand and a small knife in the other. He was forcefully striking them together, but nothing caught. Phil muttered under his breath as he struck harder, and then the knife slipped too far, nicking him. Phil had dropped both blade and stone with a curse, grinding his wounded hand to his chest. Techno raised an eyebrow at his clumsiness. The long travel finally getting to you, Philza? Thought you'd be used to it by now. It's not the travel, Philza said quietly. You know it's not. Maybe, Techno acknowledged, turning his head to stare out of the mouth of the cave. Night was beginning to fall outside, the snow on the ground, glowing like a molten lava in the light of the sunset. Techno found himself reaching for the blue sapphire that hung from his ear, absentmindedly turning it over between his fingers. He could feel Phil's eyes on him, but he refused to turn around after a beat. Techno could hear him picking up the flint and the knife again, striking them against each other so viciously that Techno almost missed his whispered question, what happened to it? What happened to what? Philza hesitated, but eventually clarified, the emerald I gave you. Last time I checked, it was sitting in the bottom of a lake somewhere. Phil let out a humorless laugh. I should have expected that. Finally, Techno turned towards him. So why didn't you? The question seemed to have taken Phil aback. He almost dropped the flint in the hand again, his eyes wide. What did you think I would do? What did you think I would do, Phil? Techno continued before Phil could even take a breath to answer. Carry it around with me even after you left. Hang it from my ear like a constant reminder of a friendship twice betrayed. Techno scoffed at the stricken look. Stricken?
Yeah. When we get to a good stopping point, can I go to the bathroom?
No.
Okay.
I know, may you?
We're almost there. Like
Cool. It's fine. I'm just
3 more things.
bringing it up that I need to.
The stricken look on the other god's face. Don't act as if you're any more sentimental. Should I point out that the emerald I gave you is glaringly missing from around your royal throat? Phil looked down as if also just realizing the emerald necklace that was twin to Techno's earring was no longer there. Still looking at the spot where it used to rest, Phil said, there you go again, with your presumptions, Techno. My presumptions? Now Phil met his gaze again, his blue eyes blazed like frozen ice lit from within. You once accused me of holding nothing sacred. I thought after all these years you might have realized. He struck the flint and fire finally blazed to life in the dark cave. Wilbur, tell me, that is what is sacred to me. For a while there was only the flickering of the flames between them, casting shadows against the cold walls and their colder expressions. It brought Techno back to a different time, a different land of ice and snow, but with the same company. No, not the same. Never the same. Now, neither of them had aged, but they had both changed irrevocably.
Yeah. Like, it's a hard word. You're doing good on it. I'm not gonna attempt it.
I'm awesome. Irrevocably. Never mind. Irrevocably. I talk too loud. Irrevocably. Even Techno's hand had almost forgotten the shape of violence. The voice tried, but he remained gentle, kind, true. A ship with a steady anchor. When he looked at Phil, all he saw was a man who once had that for himself and was now trying desperately to deserve it again. Warm slowly seeped into Techno. He opened his mouth to say something, be it a comment laden
Yeah.
with passive aggression or an apology or a question. He would never know because at the same moment something stirred. Techno, came a groggy, muffled voice. Wilbur was awake. Go pee, you bitch! Hey, you good?
Huh?
You good?
Oh, okay.
You're not even listening to me?
No, I can do both.
No? Okay.
I can do
No.
both.
No, you just said no.
I
You're not
can do
listening to
both.
me.
I've been
No, you're
doing
not
something
listening
else
to me.
too. I've been listening.
I'm disappointed.
I want to know where the emerald necklace is. Where'd you put it? Huh?
Mm.
Get all butthurt when Technoblade doesn't have it. Where's yours?
Yeah, right? Yeah, but Techno, you're sacred to me. That's not an answer.
It's not an answer. Where is it, fucker?
Yeah,
Dick fucking bitch, why'd you leave me again?
right?
Without telling me again!
Yeah. Tommy just tweeted, I promise I've never searched this. I was hacked, guys. I was hacked. George not found hot. I love that so much.
Have to be so rude about it.
What?
Go pee, you bitch!
Oh.
Didn't have to be so rude about it.
Yeah. Okay. Wilbur was awake. Oh God. Feels I watched this Techno practically wilted. Up until that point, Phil had not realized how much tension Techno had truly been holding, but now he's sagged with. Oh, that's cool. Sorry. Sagged with bonus relief against the wall behind him, running a shaky hand through his unbound hair. A conversation among many things forgotten. You really scared the shit out of me, Wilbur, Techno said as the man in question slowly pulled himself up from under the small mountain of blankets Techno had thrown on top of him. Wilbur tried to smile, and then the cold air finally hit him at last, turning his grin into a grimace as he pulled a few of the furs tight around himself and sat up, his head sticking up from a bundle of pelts the same color as his chestnut hair. A creature of warmth, determined to survive in a frozen wasteland. Scared the shit out of myself too, if that helps, he quipped.
Yep.
Quipped. When he met Phil's eyes, it took all Phil's willpower not to crawl to him and shake him by the shoulders, either to hug him or to demand if he was alright, if anything hurt, if anything was broken. Phil held himself impossibly still as Wilbur opened his mouth to speak. Perhaps a thank you, perhaps acknowledgement, perhaps another whispered, "Father?" "Do you have any water on you?" Wilbur asked. Phil would take it. He would take anything. He reached for his pack and took out one of the canteens he'd filled with fresh water before the land froze over. He tossed it to Wilbur, who snuck a pale hand out of his cocoon of blankets and took a long, hearty swig. When he was done, he tossed the empty canteen back at Phil's and retreated against the wall, his eyes shining and staring into the flickering fire. So that was, Wilbur shook his head ruefully. That was definitely something. Yes, Techno replied dryly. You nearly dying definitely was something. Wilbur shrugged. Well, we're a day's walk away from the god that can bring me back to life anyway, so I don't think this hardly matters. Unless that god doesn't want to, Techno's eyes slipped to Phil. I think it's time we talk about that possibility. Phil sighed. They'd been dancing around the topic for weeks, but now they were at the threshold and Phil knew he would only be prolonging the inevitable. A hazy memory rose to the surface, stumbling through the ruins of an old civilization, running his fingers against ancient walls that remained surprisingly free of dust, finding himself inside a library where no living being had walked in eons. Books, a lot of books, books and languages Phil had not heard spoken, since he himself was the young god, and in between the pages an answer. There were stories before, Techno began slowly. of the green god being afraid of you. But then he said he might even be more powerful than you and I combined. Stories, feels a shrug. Unreliable little things, but then again, having power doesn't exempt you from having fears. Even the most horrified wall can fall with a single well-placed blow. What does that mean for us? Wilbur asked. It means, Phil said, that I think I have something the green god fears, but until we know what that is, we have no choice but to strong arm. Huh? We have no choice but to strong arm our way into getting what we want from him, and to do that, I need you, Techno. You didn't even realize, eh? Yeah.
No, it wasn't me though.
No, it wasn't you. Yep.
It was your mom.
No, no, it was mine.
Was it Regan?
It was mine calling for Mason.
Oh.
It was mine.
Yeah. We all have yelling moms now. Don't say it too loud because she will start yelling in like an hour. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you down.
Is that a grumble?
That was a growl. He growled at me.
Like, no, I don't.
He's like, he was fine when the chair was far away from the desk, but as soon as it got close to the desk, he was like, no.
Fuck that chair. Desk.
Did you thank Evan for the raid?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I muted. So you guys didn't have to. And I said hi, and I did thanks.
Oh,
So.
your thing is so cute, reader Elleen. It's like a fucking presentation.
Yes! And also, there's too much blank space over there. It was throwing me off. I'm like, I need to put something here. I can put that there.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
The dog is back. He admitted he is back. Oh,
Good.
and now he's gone again.
He's gone.
Fine if you just beat the table.
Why would she?
You know that because of your screen it doesn't show up properly? It's like, it's over. Yeah, it's better.
Hello. Goodbye.
Hi, Mason.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
We love when Mason just goes, hello, goodbye.
Amen. Let's see. Here it was, the other shoe, the last trick up his sleeve. I found a way, Filsa said, for someone to breach the realm of what is possible, an untold power strength to rival 1,000 godly armies. All we need are two gods, one to be its vessel and the other to be its sacrifice. Sacrifice? Wilmer Techno said that one sounding incredulous, the other simply curious. Yes, despite the fear in front of him, all Phil could feel was freezing cold. I need your godhood, Technoblade. There was a long pause, and then Wilbur's voice, sharp as a blade, cutting through the silence. But what will happen to you? Philza opened his mouth to answer, then promptly closed it when he realized Wilbur was looking at Techno. The blood god, in turn, looked lost in contemplation. When he finally met Philza's eyes, his expression was blank and merciless as a bed of fresh snow hiding space beneath. Will I die? There was no emotion behind the question, just an objective. Philza shook his head. No, at least I don't think so. You don't think so? Wilbur repeated viciously. Techno's life is on the line here. Do you think you can give us a better answer than that? Wilbur, Techno said sharply. Calm yourself. Let the man finish. You won't die, Phil said above Wilbur's protest. But you will lose everything that makes you divine. Your strength, your invincibility, my immortality, Techno finishes. Will I lose that as well? Yes, Phil said quietly. You will. Good, Technoblade said, stunning even Wilbur into silence. He seemed to consider his words for a few moments before giving a nod. The movement like a hammer, slamming down on the final nail in a coffin. That's good. How are you so nonchalant about nonchalant?
Nonchalant, yeah.
about this Techno, Wilbur demanded. How can you sit there and tell me you're so willing to give up your immortal life? Techno scoffed. Immortal life? That should be an oxymoron. Oxymoron?
Yep.
Yep. He looked down at his hands, clenching and unclenching them in his lap. There's not much living to be done when you're immortal, Wilbur. I think there comes a point when every person, immortal or otherwise, finally does everything they were meant to do. Everything that comes after is just additions. The only difference is that mortal get to go. You get to finish your story, close your book. He took a deep, rattling breath. I've always envied you for that. Are you done then? Wilbur asked, his expression caught between furious indignation and the fear of losing yet another brother. Do you think you're done everything? My life was fulfilled the day I met you and Tommy, Techno said.
Sorry. So I opened up Minecraft and I'm playing Minecraft. Shiv joined the game, and of course I say, hey, and then she just roars and leaves. What?
That's about right.
I would quote that if I were you. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Take a screenshot of it so you prove.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna...
Now we have the evidence.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Wait, hold on. I'll do it down here. Whatever.
yeah, we never recorded it.
Boop-a-doop. Sorry.
Yep.
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah. My life was fulfilled the day I met you and Tommy, Techno said. Everything that came after was an epilogue I frankly didn't deserve. After we get him back someday, not someday soon. I hope it's someday. I want to go to follow you to wherever you finished stories go. Like, it's not even words. She's like, we can't figure out words. She's shouting. We just.
Yeah, someone's probably attacking her right now.
Wait, I love that.
No, fuck.
Yeah.
And clapping.
Okay. Yeah. Wilbur's eyes shone in the gloom. Techno, he began his words barely a whisper, but Techno cut him off briskly, suddenly rising to his feet. That's only our last resort, isn't it? I don't have to sacrifice anything until push comes to shove, right? He gave Phil's appointed look until Phil nodded hesitantly. Right. Well, I'll go hunting for dinner. Try not to kill each other while I'm gone. And now Wilbur and Phil were alone. Techno ran. He ran until his lungs were free of smoke and cave and talks of mortality. He ran until he was more pure than man, more air than body. He ran until he fell to his knees in front of the cracked eyes that almost claimed the last life Techno gave a shit about. He stared into its dark depths, the shifting waters like grim invitation. Technoblade never dies. The voice urged, promised, cursed. I guess we'll have to see, Technoblade replied and began to laugh. Wilbur fell back against the cave while staring at the space where Techno had been just moments before. He was familiar with the sight of his old tutor, too easily startled in moments of vulnerability, like a newborn fawn just starting to learn about a world capable of hurting. My life was fulfilled the day I met you and Tommy. He sounded so sure as he said it. Wilbur wished he could say anything with even a fraction of conviction Techno had. It must feel so light knowing your story ending, but Wilbur could spend 1,000 years wondering and it would still feel like he was running out of time.
Oh. She even muted.
You good? Okay. Running out of time. A boy, king first, and then just a king, and now a brother far from home. Who would he be the day he died? Would he meet death constantly, slipping into its arms at the age of 80 with his crown askew and his legacy secure? Or would he have to drag him, kicking and screaming into the dark, frigid water, filling his lungs, praying, Father, Father, save me. with no one to remember him but two gods in a kingdom without a king. He did not even know how he would face them. If he returned, would they understand what he did in Blue Valley? Would they know it was all for them? Would they care? King or pariah? Pariah, right?
Piranha?
Pariah. Pariah? Yeah, I'm saying it right, an outcast.
Okay.
You don't know the word pariah?
Nope.
I do. It just, for some reason, it didn't sound right in the sentence to me.
I knew something. A king or pariah. There was only one other man who knew what it meant to be both. Who should have done it? Wilbur asked once again, a little boy looking for approval in a place he would never find it. Would you have buried them in all in rubble? His father stared at him from across the flames, his blue eyes, Tommy's eyes sparkling in the dim light. To save you? To save our kingdom? He shook his head, a conclusion reached. It's a sign of your goodness that you hesitated. I would not have spared a single thought to it. And how did you know if I hesitated? Because I like to think I still know my own son. Well, maybe I'm more your son than you think, Wilbur said. Because I didn't hesitate at all. The voice chuckled. Little killer king, you've finally grown into your role. For a moment his father only stared at him, then he said, I'm sorry. Wilbur blinked. What? I'm sorry, his father repeated, his voice cracking like thin ice, hiding. Tumultuous?
Tumultuous? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thin ice hiding tumultuous. Fuck's sakes, I said it right. Thin ice hiding tumultuous water beneath. I'm sorry you had to carry that. I'm sorry I was late. If I had been there with you, I would have pressed the button just so you didn't have to. Wilbur felt his chest tighten, like some curious giant was squeezing him between its palms, breaking him open and asking, What are you made of, little one? It wasn't a button, Wilbur said. I blew a horn. Did you know? The voices murmured. Father looked just as surprised as Wilbur felt. Right, I don't know why. He shook his head as if he were trying to clear it off cobwebs. Will, do you sometimes feel like you're an echo of something? And not a sound of my own? Wilbur chuckled darkly. Every goddamn day of my life. For what it's worth, his father said. I am proud of you, Wilbur. Proud of who you were and who you are now. That will never be a question. Thank you, Wilbur replied softly and meant it. I spent your childhood so clouded by worry. The words rang true in the cave in Wilbur's head. So afraid always that you would be taken away from me. I had seen what the world was capable of, and when you began speaking of voices calling to you, sometimes I could not even look at you without being absolutely paralyzed by fear. And how do I look to you, Will? Father had once asked. He dismissed the question before insistent that it was He dismissed the question before insistent that it was disappointment that wrinkled his father's brow and tucked his lips into a frown. Now Wilbur thought. He might be close to the truth. His father had never been sad because of him. He had been sad for him. It was as if Wilbur had been looking through a fog to his childhood and now it was lifted, leaving only clarity. But that was my own fault, Father continued, his eyes shining with tears. Wilbur noted with shock. It was a strange thing watching a parent cry. Everything was backwards, and yet everything was just right. If I ever made you feel inadequate?
Yep.
Or unwanted, or like you disappoint me, Will, I want you to know. You could never do that. I have lived this life for more times than you can comprehend. I've built empires and kingdoms. I have been a warrior, a ruler, a wanderer. Architect?
Yep.
But the greatest title I've ever had the honor of owning was father. He smiled even as tears glistened down his cheeks, or as Tommy used to call me, Dad. I miss him. The words broke free, tripping over himself in their release. Wilbur felt his own eyes growing misty, turning the world into a hazy blur of firelight. Miles and miles away from here, bundled in hay and their family collars, his brother's body was heading home. But the rest of him lingered. Even in the bleak panic of drowning and freezing, he had been there, telling Wilbur to swim. And when his voice retreated in its wake, he had been an immeasurable sadness. But even then, the sadness was good, as good as Tommy himself had been. It was proof that once love used to grow in the hollow cavern of Wilbur's chest. I miss him so much, Father. In the dark, the god they called the Angel of Death said, I know, Wilbur, as do I. When the blood god returned with his cheeks aglow and a pack full of fresh fish hunted from a king-sized hole in the ice, he found a father and a son speaking fondly of times long ago. Their laughter soft and their faces bright for once. There were more things to be said than not, and people used to tell stories of an immortal hunter and a harbin, what? Harbinger. Okay, this is enough. Harbinger. A person or that announces or signals the approach of another. Harbinger. Okay. And a harbinger of death. It spoke of gardens and forest, apple orchards?
Orchards.
Orchid. What?
Orchard. Orchard. It's orchard. Like apple orchard.
Oh.
Yeah. Apple orchards and a woman whose son inherited her hair and eyes and heart. But above all, they spoke of thunderstorm bottled in a boy, the sun at the center of everything. And if there were any ghosts that hunted their reminiscent sons, they kept their silence. Yeah. We're almost there, Techno called out. It's just over this hill. He looked back to find Wilbur slowly making his way up the slope. Filza hovered close behind, grimacing every time his son slipped or slid against the snow. Wilbur, in true Wilbur fashion, had decided he did not need any help, blaming his blunders entirely on his new fur-lined cloak and not on his experience with maneuvering a frozen incline. If he weren't so sure Wilbur would retaliate with an arrow to his shoulder, Techno would have laughed at his flailing attempts. Techno leaned against his trident as he watched Wilbur sweat away Filza's assistance, but unlike before, there seemed to be none true heat behind the rejection. Just Wilbur being Wilbur. Techno knew the fault lines between them could not be healed overnight, but he had to admit it was nice having Wilbur not look at his father with murderous intent every time. Ugh, Techno thought. When did I get so sentimental? Amen. What a... Yeah. If the boys had any comment, they kept it to themselves. In fact, they had been quiet the whole day. It wasn't unusual for Techno to go days, even weeks or months at some point, without the voices murmuring like nosy neighbors in the back of his mind. But it felt different, sinister somehow. Felt like the smug silence of an opponent that knew it had the winning hand. God, Wilbur, Techno called out, digging the butt of his trident deeper into the snow. This entire tundra will have melted before the rest of Techno's words trailed off as he felt his trident hit something too hard to reach the snow with a sinking feeling in his gut. Techno looked down at where his trident had struck, slowly moving the snow aside with his weapon. Slowly but surely unveiling what was hiding beneath his feet. Techno? Wilbur shouted, getting closer. Techno, what are you doing? God, Techno whispered. Gods and stars and shit. Because beneath the snow was a pale face, staring unseeing up at Techno, its expression of wide-eyed terror forever preserved by the cold. His heart hammering in his chest, Techno ran into... Crested?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know.
The hill that overlooked what once was a bustling city but was now something else entirely. He could hear Wilbur scrambling up the hill behind him. He knew Wilbur would see it eventually, but still Techno turned back around, catching Wilbur by the shoulder before he could realize the full extent of the devastation. Wilbur, Techno said solemnly, I need you to know this isn't your fault. Wilbur's brows drew together. I don't... Listen to me, Techno demanded in his voice that he had not used on him since they were tutor and pupil. We're here for one thing and one thing only. And if anything can get in the way of that, your self-doubt, your fear, your loathing, lo- lo- loading?
Yep, you had it.
I suggest, yeah. I suggest you leave them at the door, right here, right now. Do you understand? Wilbur's eyes hardened. I'm not a child. That wasn't my question. Wilbur shrugged his hands on him and gritted out, I understand. Before marching stoically up the rest of the way. How bad is it? Phil asked quietly as they watched Wilbur reach the crest. Fucking bad, was all Techno said in response. Techno could pinpoint the exact moment Wilbur saw it for himself. He went rigid, his hands curling into fists, the only indication that he was not a statue of frozen flesh and bone. When Phil and Techno joined him at the summit, Techno heard his fellow god draw in a breath as he too took in the massacre below them. Burned bodies laying in scorched snow, frostbitten corpses laid in careless piles or tossed against the city walls, bodies too small to belong to adults. Blood scattered across the white landscape like some errant child had taken a red paintbrush to a blank canvas. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. The entire city presented like a gruesome welcome sign. Without a word, Wilbur slipped down the rest of the way, his boots skidding against the ice and snow. Phil and Techno exchanged a brief glance before they followed after him, and the three of them made their way through the carnage, none of them speaking or even daring to breathe. Techno had seen this. Sorry. Techno had seen his fair share of ruthlessness, but this cut to the bone like nothing else ever had. Perhaps it was the carefully blank look on Wilbur's face, or the way Phil tucked his wings close around himself. Maybe remembering different town, the first of the people he had sworn Phil to protect. Or perhaps it was because somewhere along the way their people had become Techno's people as well. Not soldiers, not warriors, just people. It was until they were past the city gates that Wilbur's knees finally buckled and he fell against the lamppost. Retching. What's retching?
Like throwing up.
Okay. Phil was there immediately, rubbing soothing circles on Wilbur's back and whispering words too low for Techno to hear. He was too busy taking in the city despite the massacre of its citizens, just outside its walls. The city remained immaculate, its cobblestone streets and brick houses untouched. Through an open door, Techno could see a room forever frozen in mundanity. A table laid with now spoiled food, the chairs pushed away from it as if the family it was meant for simply walked away from it, not knowing they would never return. In fact, there didn't seem to be any sort of disturbance within the city itself. No food carts overturned, no doors thrown off their hinges, no mark on the ground where people could have been dragged. What little snow stuck to the ground bore no signs of violent trespass, just evidence of that entire city seemed to have willingly went to its slaughter. What the hell happened here? Techno thought, his hands tightening in his stride, almost snapping it in half. All of this, Wilbur said, staggering to Techno's side. All of this just to get us here? Not us, Vilsa said. Coming up behind them. Just me. I was getting close to something big, and a green god called me back. Techno let out a bitter bark flatter. Vilsa, don't tell me we're supposed to reason that someone would do this just to invite you to this little play date. We've done worse ourselves, Phil said quietly, making Wilbur freeze. To fighters, to enemies. You once fought for any cause that would give you an enemy, reminded Phil. His eyes spinning Techno in place. There was no accusation in them, just the truth. That you would bleach now is proof of how far you've come. But in about a few minutes, Techno, I think we'll need your old heart. I know. Techno mumbled, turning away from Philza. Don't send a mortal for God's word. Hey, Wilbur said weakly, I'm right here. And we're so glad to have you here with us, Techno said wearily. Riley? W-R-I-L-I?
Yeah, Riley.
Riley. Could you say that again without looking constipated? Techno shook his head unwilling. Shut up. Who was laughing?
This is me.
Yeah. Could you say that again without looking constipated? Techno shook his head, unwilling to discuss it any further. Wilbur was not meant to be here. Techno had already lost a brother to this war and wasn't too keen on losing another. But he knew there was no force on earth, mortal or immortal, that could stop Wilbur from standing under this pale red sky, running a finger over the pommel of the rapier sheathed at his side with every intent to shove it through the heart of the god that killed his brother. In the distance, church bell began to ring. Phil saw at Techno's eyes. He's calling. Techno nodded, gripping his triumph tighter. And we're answering. They moved as a unit through the dead city, no sound except for the howling of the wind and the insistent toll of the bells. The closer they got to the heart of the city, the more Techno felt like each footstep was not his own. There was a greater gravity pulling them forward, putting them no choice but to descend. Oh, giving them no choice but to descend. And then, as he came around a bend, he saw it. A bell tower rising towards the sky, its bells still pealing away. And beneath its long shadow, a church of marble with its doors thrown open. An invitation. It's not too late to turn back around, Techno said. Yes, Wilbur said. It is, and climbed the stairs to his apotheosis? Apotheosis?
What the fuck is that word?
Apotheosis. The highest point in the development of something, a culmination or climax.
Just say a climax then.
Apotheosis. And climbed the stairs to his apotheosis. What else could Techno do but follow? They walked into the church and found him immediately. He was sitting on a pulpit of marble, his legs dangling over its gilded edge. He was calmly reading a book, eyes leisurely?
Leisurely?
Leisurely.
Leisurely?
Mm-hmm.
Leisurely moving across the leather-bound pages. His eyes were the most striking thing about him, an unnatural shade of green that reminded Techno of overripe grapes, sour instead of sweet and rotten to the core. The rest of him was unremarkable, save for the fact that he was wearing nothing more than a faded white tunic and trousers in a freezing cold. He could have passed for a mortal. Curly, dark blonde hair stuck behind his ears, hands wrapped in bandages up to the knuckles, and a face that could have been a face Techno passed on the street a million times over.
Shiv just went wee.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah, sorry about how much of a reaction I just had
Yeah.
there.
What the fuck is this?
Okay. I'm sorry, what was that, Evan?
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted that either. Is that Barack Obama? Yeah, it is. Huh.
You know what, I'll just read.
Yeah.
Bench up to the nooks, and face that could have been a face Techno passed on the street a million times over without remembering it. No obsidian wings or eyes the color of fresh drawn blood. A man, not a god. Phil's and Techno changed a glance. Is this really him? The quirky of Techno's eyebrows asked. I have no idea, Phil's shrugged in reply. Green god? Wilbur said loudly, stepping further into the church. You have come to the man? The god? Raised a finger up to silence him. Not taking his eyes off his book, Wilbur glanced back at Techno's face in open disbelief. For a moment the three of them stood at the threshold, awkwardly shifting from foot to foot as the green eye being read on. Then after a while he took a deep breath, nodding to himself as he snapped the book closed and finally considered the three of them standing below him. And then he smiled, and there was no question about what he was. There was nothing kind in him. This was a god, true and true. Finally, he said. I was beginning to think you'd never show. Techno froze. No, it couldn't be. It wasn't possible, it wasn't. Out of the corner of his eyes, Techno could see Wilbur, his mouth agape. He'd never seen him so terrified. No, Techno whispered, or maybe he screamed it. You too? Wilbur slowly nodded, unwilling or maybe unable to. Oh!
What?
I think I know. Oh my god. Yellow and purple. That's not how you spell purple. That's how you pronounce it. Okay, that's a cake. Sorry, I have to respond to read. No, it couldn't be. It wasn't probable. It wasn't possible. It wasn't. Out of the corner of his eyes, Techno could see Wilbur, his mouth agape. He had never seen him so terrified. No, Techno whispered, or maybe he screamed it. You too? Wilbur slowly nodded, unwilling or maybe unable to rip his wide-eyed gaze from the green god. Because the voice that came out of the green god's mouth, it was the voice. Singular this time, and not a chorus, but still the same voice that had hunted Techno through the centuries, that had tied him irrevocably to a young prince and his forest fire brother. The voices he and Wilbur had called them, but in truth it had only ever been one, echoing over and over like swords shouted into a chasm. A voice, the green god's voice. Surprise, the voice said. The voice whispered in Techno's head as the green god said the same thing out loud. Surprise. What's going on? Phil demanded, his expression half worry, half confusion. Techno? He's the voice, Phil. Techno whispered, his mouth feeling dry. All this time it was him. But how? Oh, that's a long story, the green god said with a chuckle. The same low haunted laughter that had taunted and mocked Techno for as long as he could remember. But first, how are you? You must be weary after all the traveling, especially you, Wilbur. So sad to hear about your brother. Mortal hearts can only take so much hurt. He gave a casual shrug of his shoulders. Then again, immortal hearts aren't so much different, especially if they've been foolishly given to the wrong people. Take the war god, for example. The angel of death merely drove a sword through a heart already broken. A flicker of a darker emotion, nameless fleeting, crossed the green god's face before his unnerving smile took center stage once more. Angel, get that thing off your face.
It's like I wasn't even looking, but I knew instantly what you were talking about.
I wasn't looking either. I saw it from the corner of my eyes. My peripheral view.
Yeah, you made it a circle.
You made it a circle. You made it a fucking circle.
Oh my fucking god.
I hate you. I hate you.
For those who are wondering, Angel has basically made a paper dream mask.
It's a paper
Why
towel,
do you have a
thank
thing to clasp it on?
'Cause I
You're
can't.
weird.
It's weird.
True.
That's why my hairband.
Oh, that's why. Speaking of the angel, did you like my invitation, Filsa? I spent such a long time drawing it up, but I figured you only deserve the best war, right? Who? Phil began with a message for the fuck are you? The green god considered them, with a tilt of his head, blonde curls falling over glassy green eyes. They call me by many names. You know me as the green god. Others brand me the god of chaos. The progenitor?
The janitor?
There's a pro before it. Progenitor. Why? Progenitor, a person or thing from which a person, animal or plant is descended or originates an ancestor or parent. Oh, daddy.
Daddy?
That was too easy.
Daddy?
The progenitor. He who rules, he who watches. All silly little names mortals gave to something beyond their understanding. He placed the book he was reading on the ledge beside him and raised his arms over his head in language stretched. But my friends called me Dream. The red sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows fractured over Wilbur's face, painting him in kaleidoscope
Oh.
A kaleidoscope.
of colors as he stumbled over his words. Charming King Wilbur, for once rendered speechless. The green god Dream seemed to delight in his fumbling, his smile turning sharp as his gaze found Wilbur. Wilbur, Dream said, I truly commend you for that show with the explosions. You took most of them out in one fell swoop. But I have to admit, if Techno had continued on as he was going, I would have been forced to step in. I suppose I shouldn't have underestimated the great and powerful blood god. Wilbur shook his head slowly, as if coming out of daze. All those people. All those people! His voice trembled. Why? How? Those are two very different questions, Dream said cheerfully. So why don't we start from the very first beginning? Good. What a... Angel, what are you doing? You've been caught red-handed, bitch!
What?
You don't know what I'm doing.
She's doing something with the hairband and the mask, probably. Something with the mask, at least. Okay, fine. Phils had no idea what was going on. All he knew was the very instinct in his body was telling him to fight, to reach for the sword strapped across his back and draw it against the smiling man at the other end of the aisle. But he also knew that besides him, Wilbur and Techno were standing transfixed, and it was not his call to make. The two of them were twin students, waiting for answers from a far wiser teacher, and Phils could understand that desperation, that ceaseless drive to find answers by whatever means necessary. He found himself lost in that feeling for nearly a decade. Wilbur and Techno had been waiting for this conversation all their lives, and they hadn't even known. Phil was not going to take the chance away from them, no matter how much he wanted to drag them both far away from here, so he stood his ground and listened. Dream's knowing smile seemed to be directed straight at him. First things first, said the green god, leaning back on his bandaged hands and considering the three of them carefully. I think you must have noticed this already, even if none of you had the words to name it. This is not the first story, Soul. This is not your first life, nor will it be the last. Out of the corner of his eyes, Phil saw Wilbur stiffen and Techno jerked forward. He moved discreetly close to them, a hand on the pommel of his sword, even if his head swam with the green god's words. Dream's smile only widened. You are royalty now, but before you were simple soldiers, sometimes strangers on your own separate journeys, sometimes rebels against the shared cause, sometimes happy, but more often not. He gave a soft laugh. There was one time you were enemies, tearing each other apart until there was nothing left but bones. What the hell are you talking about? Techno demanded, his red eyes blazing, incensed by the very notion of standing on the side where Wilbur was not. I'm talking about different places taking place. Dream spread his arms wide as if welcoming them all home. Different stages, different actors, different scripts, but all the strangely back to me. Filsa did not want to believe it, but even as he stood there with his heavy disbelief, his mind raced through all the times he'd felt like 10 different people trying to live in one body. An echo, not a voice. He thought about all the dreams of finding Wilbur in the dark room, of Tommy standing on a bridge that went on until the very edge of the world, of Techno watching him from an island in the sky, all of them terrifying and too real to be just dreams. If that was true, then Phil's bones were older than he thought. He had always been dancing to someone else's song over and over and over and over again. When Wilbur spoke again, his voice was a fractured mass. So everything has been you, all along. No. Trina's expression was full of mocking pity. Not everything, just the big things, all the small intimate details, all the character. That was you. To put it bluntly, Wilbur, I may have put those soldiers in your path. It was still your choice to carve a bloody path through them. It was still you that sounded that horn. Still you that pressed that button. He shrugged. If you're looking for absolution, you won't find it here. And the voice. Oh, that? Prince grin was laced with venom. Honestly, I just wanted to screw with you. Had to have some fun for myself while I waited in the wings. Phil turned to Techno and Wilbur, but they were already looking at each other, their face a reflection of the others. All in the world, there were only two who could truly understand each other in this. Phil was merely the witness. He'd seen Techno pull his hair out in anger, had seen Wilbur lose weeks of sleep, seen them both unravel at the seams over it. Philstein himself had burned through libraries and crypts looking for an answer, and now it was here, as simple as it was terrible. The Green God was simply bored. You're a monster, Philstein gritted out, his fingernails digging into the palms until they drew blood. You're a goddamn fucking monster. I haven't even gotten to the worst part, Dream left. Technoblade. Technoblade glared up at him, bloody murder in his eyes. You're the real tragedy here, actually. And that Dream dropped down from the pulpit, landing soundlessly on the marble below Techno, and Philsa instinctively put himself between him and Wilbur. But the god simply leaned against the first of the pews? P-E-W-S?
Yep.
Pews. Examining them with all the nonchalance of a child finding a curious bug crushed beneath his heels. I almost let you sit this one out, you know? I almost allowed you a quiet life in the woods with your family. Surprise broke through Techno's fury, but it was Will who spoke up. His family? Oh, sure. Father, mother, siblings, the whole 9 yards. Siblings? Techno finally crowed. 3 sisters, Dream informed him gleefully. 2 brothers, but then I changed my mind. Couldn't waste all the dormant godhood in you. All the gods are major players, but none of the others are fun to play with as you. What did you do to them? Techno demanded, stepping forward. His trident was suddenly in his hand. What did you do to my family? Techno, stillborn. Or maybe it was Wilbur. Dream smiled. The correct question, he said slowly, is what you did to them. Techno lunged. They crashed against the marble pulpit with enough force to crack it. Techno had a fistful of the Green God's tunic in his hand and strided in the other, breathing heavily as dust and shifts of marble rained down on them both. He could hear Wilbur and Philsa calling his name, but every other noise was drowned out by Dream's laughter, a sound that had become so familiar to Techno over the years. He had hated it all his life, and now there he was, a smug-looking face attached to it. I told you, Dream spat in his face. I don't call every action Technoblade. I presented choices, but you made them. I was the voice, but you, always the blood-stained hands. I don't even remember their faces, Techno thought, tightening his hold on the Green God's shirt until he could hear it begin to tear. I don't even know their names, and yet he was consumed by it, an anger that felt like all his nerves stinging at once, demanding the same thing, vengeance. Fractured lights slanted over the 2 gods, that the whole world was a broken, miserable thing. Why? Techno hated the despair that bled into his voice, but there was nowhere else to go. Why me? Why did you change your mind? He tried searching for sympathy in Dream's face, but all he received was the darkest sort of humor. You can search for meaning all you want, he said. Turn over every rock and read all the stars in the sky, but the truth is, Techno, you are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. All of us, Techno growled, are just helpless insects in your goddamn web. Is that it? He thought he might have seen something graver? Graver? Flicker over Dream's face, but it wasn't gone before Techno could put a name to it. Not all of you. Techno was going to kill him. He was going to put his trident through that wicked little grin and he'd be done with it all. But then he felt a pair of hands on his shoulder, pulling him back. Techno, Will's voice leading him back to his own body like a lighthouse calling a ship to a safe shore. We still need him, we still have to give him back to us. Right. Dream hummed as Wilbur dragged Techno to his feet. You still need me, Techno. Don't you fucking call me that, Techno spat. They had him surrounded. He was on the floor leaning against the broken pulpit, and yet the bastard still looked like he held all the cards. Because he did. Techno felt himself sag at the realization. Hold on. Yeah, okay. Second realization, dream of everything. Oh my god, Angel!
God.
It wasn't the mask, but it was a different one.
My God.
I hate you so much right now. That's what the mask is. Ah. Go.
Yeah.
SMH.
Evan, no. Because I said Elleen, I was like...
Yeah. Dream had everything because he still had Tommy. Dream squinted up at each of them in turn, his eyes finally landing on Filza, who drawn his blade. Dream considered the sharp tip pointed straight at him. That's the same sword you killed to death. Oh, that's... My mouse was in front of the word and I couldn't read it. Dream no, that's the same sword you killed the war god with, yes? He asked calmly as if they were discussing tea. Phil didn't Dane? D-E-I-G-N?
Dane, yeah.
Dane?
It's you have like somewhat right. I don't know what it is, but you have it basically right.
Okay. Phil didn't deign to give him an answer. Techno alone recognized that look in Phil's eyes. Phil's had never been haunted by voices, but he demanded blood all the same. Did he at least fight well? Dream continued when it was clear none of them were replying. He must have, if he managed to kill your son. You will listen to me, Philsa said. His voice as cold and lifeless as tundra. It ran true. I do not care about your stories. I do not care about you, but if you have all this power, if you can rewrite history, then you will give my son back, or else. Or else what? Dream demanded. We've been down this road before, Philsa. You've had a million chances to kill me, to end this loop, but still, here we stand, still at an impasse. Impasse?
Yeah.
Impasse?
Impasse.
Impasse. But that wasn't quite true, Techno thought. He makes even a green god afraid, somehow, despite everything. Philza had the upper hand, but one glance at the man and told Techno he was just as clueless as he had been in that snow-covered cave. It was there, the key to everything, nameless and out of reach. What the hell are you, Philza? And another thing, said Dream, slowly getting to his feet. He leaned against the ruined pulpit and considered them all with a strange expression, giddy almost. I only write the histories, Philza. Plentiful as they may be, but even I do not have the power to rewrite them. Once performed, an action cannot be reversed. Once penned, an ending cannot be restored. Wilbur stiffened. What does that mean? But a monstrous?
Monstrous, yeah.
Monstrous sort of chill had already settled into Techno's soul, even before Dream threw his head back and laughed and said, "It means I can bring back the dead. Your brother's gone, for good." How many times Phils had often wondered could a heart break before there were too few pieces to make it whole again? He had seen mortals survive the cruelest of fate. They would lose homes and livelihoods and friends and family, and still they would pick themselves up the next day and soldier on. But there was a breaking point. Phils had witnessed that too. And when did it come? Was it the second loss, or the third, the sixth? Or did it only take one great tragedy to bring a man to his knees? Even the most fortified wall can fall with a single well-placed blow. And even the strongest god can fall with a single well-placed heartbreak. No. Phil's sword nearly slipped from his grip before he tightened his shaking fingers around it once more. You're lying. You must be. Why would I lie? Dream asked, his golden hair just shades darker than Tommy's used to be. You said it yourself. Resurrecting your son is the only reason you need me. Why would I give that up? There was a terrible sound, like the screech of a dying animal. It took Phil a moment to realize what was coming from his own throat. He moved without thinking, without breathing. He raised his sword high over his head and brought it crashing down on the god that had taken a remnants of hope from Phil's grasp, and dashed it against a wall. His blade shattered the marble pulpit, cutting the book the green god had left on top of it into shreds of leather and paper. But when the dust settled, he found Dream standing unharmed a few paces away, looking unimpressed. I hadn't finished reading that, Dream complained. And it was just getting interesting too. And then there was Techno, taking him by his shirt and throwing him through the nearest window with all the force a blood god could muster. He crashed through the stained glass, disappearing into the snow beyond. Phils and Techno were quick to follow. Huh? But Techno was there. Oh no, they followed Dream. Sorry. Get the thing off your head! It's not XD, it's just Dream. They bounded over the shattered glass, not even feeling cut through their skin, weapons out and ready for the slaughter. This at last was familiar. The angel of death and the blood god. Raining bloody vengeance, this was their rule. This was who they are. Dream had been flung against the wall of a building up beside the church and sat in the rubble like a king lounging on his throne. His grin, as lazy as it was malicious. So, said Dream, I take you're angry with me. Filsa flew towards him, kicking up cold snow in the violent wake of his wings. Unfolding, he slammed his foot against the green god's chest. Reveling. You're annoying.
One more. Once more.
Reveling.
Reveling.
Reveling. In the sickening crunch that came with his head cracking against the debris, his sword was at the god's throat in an instant, cutting a single red line across the pale skin. I will enjoy taking you apart, Filsa thought. If I shall spend eternity suffering, then so shall you. And never promise you anything, Dream said quietly, gazing up at Filsa. All that foolish hope, you're the one that was searching for it. You saw patterns in the sky and then blamed the stars for your own wrong interpretations. Suddenly his hand shot out, gripping the blade of Filsa's sword so tightly the blood dripped down from his palms. With surprising strength, he pushed the blade down until it was resting against his heart instead. Go ahead, tear through me, but I'm not the one who left one son by his mother's deathbed and forced a crown on the other. I'm not that kind of monster. He was 15, Filsa crowed. He died for your war at 15. And you abandoned Wilbur at 15, the green god sighed wearily. They grow up so fast, don't they? Pity, you were only there for the end. He brightened. Speaking of Wilbur, I never answered his question, did I? Of how did... How I did all this. Sorry, I couldn't...
No, not you. Raven.
Raven? Good. He let go of Filsa's sword to gesture at everything. The empty town, their shattered universe, their strange story. I don't care, Filsa steadied his shaking hand and prepared to plunge it through the god's heart. After years of fighting, he had figured out exactly where to slice without killing. That would be too kind a god than this monster to serve. Well, you should, Dream laughed. Look behind you, Filsa. Filsa would have cut off an arm before he took orders from him, but there was something in his words that made Phil's blood freeze over. Slowly, without moving his sword away from the green god's chest, Phil turned. He saw Techno make his way towards them, his unbound hair falling over his face like a burial shroud. His trident glistening in the dying sunlight as he spun it expectantly in his hand, ready to be Phil's fellow executioner. With them behind him, standing at the window they crashed through, looking numbly out at the scene, was Wilbur. As Philsa watched, still as stone, Wilbur slowly drew his bow. A slender hand reached back into his quiver and produced a single arrow. He knocked it and aimed straight at Techno. Techno! Philsa screamed in warning. Techno paused, dancing in confusion, and then he followed Phil's frightened eyes back towards the church. Phil could see Wilbur's hand shaking, his mouth formed a single word in wide-eyed fear. Techno? Oh, Wilbur! Dream's voice, the voice that had plagued Phil's son for years, now plaguing him too, as he found himself unable to move, or blink, or breathe, or think. Why the long face? Wilbur began to smile. Will? Techno asked uncomprehendingly. Uncomprehending. There was no world, no universe, no God-ridden stage where Wilbur could do this to him. And yet there they were, standing across from each other, strangers once more. This was not his brother's smile. Those were not his brother's eyes. Will, Techno said again, a plea, a prayer, a pardon. Wilbur let the arrow fly. Chapter 6 ending, baby.
I only... Oh, no, I don't only have 30 minutes. Oh, I'm so used to starting at noon that I have an hour 15, basically.
Where the fuck is she going?
She said she needed water.
Here.
Glad to hear Angel's mom is having fun again.
That's my emote.
Oh,
It's a little RIP. It's
it
so
is.
cute. I love it. RIP, that could say that.
Yep, I did the same thing. I did the same thing in my head.
Oh my god. Okay, we have an hour and a half for the last chapter.
Hour 15-ish, hour 10.
Hour 15.
Because it's almost 2, and really I need to make sure I have everything by 3. Or I need to leave to make sure I got everything at 3. Yep. Words, yes.
Yeah.
He's back.
Hello, Beck.
Daddy? Oh.
Why did you start with that?
Daddy.
Especially when you were putting dream on your face.
Dream. Because you said Dream is Daddy! Like, not even a couple hours ago.
You didn't, like, connect the pieces I just said?
What?
I
No.
asked, why did you say daddy when you put dream on your face? Amen, Raven, amen.
Raven.
Oh my gosh.
I'm your
R.I.P.
dweeb.
Hey. Okay.
Ah! Why?
That's supposed to sound like that. I'm sorry. Yay! Dweeb.
Okay,
Dweeb XD.
okay. I'm gonna give you the new thingies for again.
Daddy, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
And
triggers.
then I'm going to, yes, I'm going to the bathroom. Yeah? Okay. Never mind, I'm going to sleep.
Time to turn the stream up! Raven, you should know better. You've watched the stream for like a while. Come on, man.
Right? Oh my god.
If you know I'm in the stream, it's gonna happen.
True.
There is
Non-intentionally.
there is a lot of trigger warning for this next part. Ooh boy.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wait, isn't this the last step one? Or
This is the last,
okay, that's why.
Okay. I'm going to the bathroom and then we'll finish this one. I feel like we can finish it. But it's
Yeah.
like- oh, Matthew.
I am lighting up my stuff over here.
Is Matthew on the server?
No, it's just me and Shiv.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll be right back.
Alright.
Okay.
The sad thing is I wanted night to be over so I could feel safe, but now I need night so I can check lighting. Put my boots back on. I just took them off because Frostwalker can be a bitch.
Mm.
I want to try and take down all torches because I want to see
Wait,
just
was
the
your
lighting
character
around.
Steve just now?
Huh?
Oh, never mind. Your face just looked like Steve for like 1 millisecond. I don't know why. That was weird. Eh? Like, that can't be possible because your fist is that color. It's like-
Yeah. Do you like how this is turning out though? Do you like how this is? Do you like my area?
Yeah.
E.
I wasn't paying attention to that. Sorry.
You were too busy dealing with what color my skin is.
Yeah. Well, I tuned up and then I just saw like I swear I thought I saw. Oh, they're asking if you. No,
Hmm?
I don't think she is.
No, I am.
You are?
I am.
Oh, I thought his heart's changed too, though.
No.
So he has those like little indents,
Uh,
like his
maybe
his little.
I don't know, but I did grab Phil's texture pack, and so that's why I got like little diamond things.
Mhm.
And like if I exit out of here,
Yeah.
look, see.
Yeah, you definitely not.
I liked it, so I put it on.
Yeet.
I'm gonna wait. Is this the silk touch one? No. I'm not in the mood to be without an ender chest. Move this over here. We're gonna put the right here. Grab this.
A new Pokemon.
Honestly, I probably could carry 32 ender chests with me, if I asked Hex.
You're not wrong, man.
No, not wrong. Not in the slightest.
There's no new Pokemons here.
No new Pokemons. I have to go to the bathroom now. I'm gonna.
Go before she comes back. Run.
I will.
Run away. Run. Never return.
I have to lock myself in shifts.
Oink.
Or in this house.
Footsteps. Footsteps. Door creaks. Footsteps. Pause screen. How's it going, guys? Like, oh my god. Yeah, I know.
Also, Angel, before she comes back, this.
Oh,
Angel.
that's pretty cool.
Angel, look.
Yeah, I saw.
He's so
He said
cool.
it's pretty cool. He looks
He-
cool.
I didn't have my headphones on, and I didn't see you glance up, so.
If I'm glancing down, that's actually a good thing.
Oh,
Yeah, because that's where you guys are at.
alright. Okay, like I know.
It's the guy from Fortnite? What? Oh. The face. Oh my god, it's the guy from Fortnite! Ah! Oh my god! Ah!
Grab a candy before Elleen gets pissed at me when she gets back over it. Ah.
No, this is the guy from Fortnite.
Yes, it's night. I'm so rarely excited for it to be night.
Mm-hmm.
I'd do like one over here. Actually, do it there. Yeah.
Oh, his internet thingy went out.
Oh.
Hola.
Hello.
Did it literally?
Yes, it
literally
did.
just turned off.
Literally, once you got back, it turned off. Oh,
But I turned it off because it broke. And then I turn it off and then it goes on again.
You know, relatable.
Okay.
I'm a dweeb. Are you glaring at me?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I thought. I was like, I was done. You're just staring.
Yeah.
Wish I could. Good actually.
That's a nope.
That's a yes.
4 creepers. That's a nope.
Oh, 4?
That's
That's
a
cute.
Yeah. Okay. Chapter 7. Last chapter, girls.
Woo!
The echoing. What the fuck is that word? Hymn. Him?
Him. Yep.
Why is it spelled fucked up? The echoing hymn of my fellow Passerine. They took to it. Ringo Burr. The arrow whistled through the air, steady and sure, just like Techno taught him. Techno rolled into the snow at the last moment, shaking himself out of the frozen shock before the arrow could punch through his heart. It shot it into the ground somewhere behind him. But Wilbur was already knocking another, aiming before Techno could get to his feet. Wilbur! Techno called out, reaching for him, but there was nothing behind Wilbur's brown eyes, no clarity or kindness. Wilbur shot again, and this time found its mark in Techno's shoulder, and it hurt. It hurt. Landing back at the floor, Techno pulled the arrow free and flipped onto his feet, his shoulder a bloody mess. He stared across the way at his student, his king, his brother, who was climbing over the window, his expression remaining blank and painless, even as the broken glass cut his palm open. Techno could hear the green god laughing somewhere behind them, but he kept his eyes on Wilbur as he slung his bow over his shoulder and unsheathed his rapier instead a mindless marionette. All the strings led back to me, Dream had said. That was how he'd let the city folk outside under the green god's influence, acting on his orders without any choice. His mind raced as he Scored,
maybe? I don't know.
Scoured?
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 No!
That sounds
Oh! Sorry.
Did she die?
No, I blew up.
Oh.
Stupid zombie didn't let me get the fucking knot back on the creeper.
Okay. As he scoured his memories for any blank faces on the battlefield that day at the Blue Valley, any movements that were unnatural to control, how many innocents had been thrown in his path and how many had been killed without even knowing it. And now Will was stalking towards him, graceful in his hunt, another casualty, another brother whose blood will be on Technoblade's hands. He'd killed his family once before, the Green God had said, and now he was fated to kill another. Fate. Such a small word for such a big thing. There's only one way for this to end. With trembling hands, Techno raised his trident and was ready. Philza turned at the sound of the Green God's laughter. He still had the bastard trapped under the tip of his sword, but they both knew who had truly won. Dream kicked and grinned
Triumphantly.
Triumphantly up at him. Don't laugh at me. It's
I'm sorry, I just saw you.
There was a fly in my face.
Oh, I thought you were flipping out the
I don't randomly go sit doing this, you weirdo. Dream grin triumphant. Help.
Triumphantly.
Triumphantly.
Up at him, flashing bloody palms in some sort of placating gesture. Placating?
No, it's not worth it.
Yeah, look that one up.
Placating, intended to make someone less angry or hostile. In some sort of placating gesture, as if anything can save him from Philza's wrath now. What the fuck did she do to him? Philza demanded, digging the heel of his boot into the green god's ribs. What have you done to my son? You're sleepwalking, the green god said. Or dreaming, or acting. Just whichever explanation hurts least for you, or whichever will excuse him from the mistakes he's about to commit. You've done this before, Philza pressed harder. He would crush him like a twig beneath his foot. He would kick him over like the goddamn insect he was. You've controlled him before. A few times here and there, Dream shrugged nonchalantly. But I avoid it at much as I can. It's not very fun inside your son's head, you know. There's a lot of happiness there. He considered Philza with a smile. Most of it concerns you, though. I suppose you already knew that, though. I could kill you, Philza drawled, a strange calm setting into him. All his anger and grief had fled the universe far from where he was, leaving nothing in their wake. Philza was the void between stars and the pitch black of the earth. Final night, he was the silence after curtain call, and a certain stillness of a home abandoned. The day I lost my sons would be the day I destroyed the world, he promised Techno. And he would start with the god that had taken them from him. I could push this sword straight through you, and you'd be done with, he continued, gripping its ancient pommel. And with my final breath, I'll take what's left from of your son's heart and tear it to shreds. The green god replied calmly, would you risk that? Would you risk his sanity for your own? You've done it before, do it again. He leaned forward until the tip feels the blade toward a hole through his tunic. One swift vision will tear through the skin and bone too. Go ahead, let him be the sacrificial lamb for your own peace of mind. Kill me, and kill him. Filsa stared down the blade at the smiling god. The sword had served him for eons and had only failed him once when it had left the war god enough life in him to carry out one last vengeance. It would not make the same mistake again. In the distance he heard Techno call Wilbur's name, but there was no reply. You're hesitating, Filsa, said the green god. No, said Filsa, raising his sword above his head. I am not. Wilbur's rapier glinted in the scarlet sunlight as it cut through the air between them, aiming straight for Techno's heart. Techno spun backwards, the rapier grazing his sleeve and missing skin entirely. But the assault continued, fierce and relentless, the calculated movements a product of a decade under Techno's tutelage. What's it?
Huh?
Tutelage? Tutelage.
Something like that, yeah.
Which means that probably makes less sense to you. Tutelage. Yep. There should be pride, Techno knew. He should have been proud to see how far Wilbur had grown, from a spoiled little prince with shaky legs and soft hands to a hardened fighter. But even from the beginning, he had always taught Wilbur to defend, to protect, because that was Wilbur's nature, that was who he was. Not this. Even in Techno's worst nightmares, never this. Techno parried another sharp blow, stumbling backwards. Over the snowy ground, there was only the sound of steel striking steel and his boots in retreat. Wilbur pushed against Techno's trident, battling for the upper hand, and in that moment they were close enough for Techno to meet Wilbur's dim eyes. A flicker of recognition or a spark of surprise, Techno would take anything. Wilbur, please. Wilbur, you have to shake him off. I know you can do it, alright? I taught you how to ignore the voices, and this isn't any different. Ignore his directions and follow mine. For a moment, Techno thought he might have seen something shift behind Wilbur's expression, like lightning behind the dark curtain, but then it was gone. Or maybe it had never been there at all. As quick as goodbye, Wilbur jumped back and then struck out, kicking at Techno. Techno skidded?
Yeah, skidded.
Backwards, almost falling over into the frozen ground. He righted himself just in time to block another savage blow that reverberated
Yep.
down into his bones. But even as he was recovering from the shock of it, Wilbur's hand flashed as he reached into his quiver and produced an arrow, clutching it in his fist and bringing it down in Techno's uninjured shoulder. Techno bit back a scream as it shredded through his cloth and skin. He spun away from Wilbur, breathing heavily. He scarcely had time to pull the arrow out before Wilbur was on him again, raining blow after blow that Techno could only half-heartedly parry. Wilbur was backing him up against the church. Soon there would be nowhere left to run. In desperate attempt to put space between them, Techno swung his trident in an arc. He knew Wilbur would duck harmlessly under it, hopefully giving Techno time to think of better strategies than praying for a miracle. But Wilbur was fast, too fast. He ducked and sprung up in the same breath. He swung with a careless lethality, this time aiming for Techno's face. It slashed the air a mere inch from his cheek before it drew back once more and then shot point first towards his eye. Techno's breath caught in his throat. Everything was moving too fast and too slow. He could see the snow melting against Wilbur's cheek, glistening like tears. He could see the blade heading towards him. He could see himself standing in a pavilion of white marble, eyeing him hysteria parting as a young boy with a stubborn jaw and more stubborn heart stepped in. He could see this very maneuver acted out by a wooden sword guided by his own hand. When in doubt, your highness, he heard himself say, go for the eyes. All at once Technoblade wasn't facing his brother, it was just another opponent, another threat he had to survive. And so by instinct his trident rose, catching the rapier's blade in its prongs and twisted it out of Wilbur's grip. It flew into the air, spinning like a broken compass before it fell harmlessly into the snow. A few pieces away, Wilbur turned to look at it, his hands empty but already calculating what it would take to be armed once more. He tried reaching for his bow. Techno wouldn't give him a chance. With the butt of his trident, a gift once, but just a weapon now, Techno struck at Wilbur's chest, sending him crashing to the ground, and then his trident was at Wilbur's throat, tipping his chin up towards his reckoning. Are you coming back to me yet? Techno demanded, the words crashing his throat as he said them, and for the first time Wilbur replied, Techno? He breathed, his eyes softening with understanding and then panic as the word slowly righted itself. Techno, God, why am I on the ground? Relief burned through Techno as he met Wilbur's clear eyes, relief and shame. Shame that it had taken just a few moments of fear to return him.
Oh. So it
That bloody second foot on Wilbur's face.
You cut out a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, where?
Just for like a couple. I would reread that little line. Just that little bit of line.
No.
No.
I don't like
Oh.
people calling me pretty. It's like, shut up.
You know, same.
What?
Okay, I put a picture of us three in images one if you see. Reed said, you guys are so pretty, I can't. Evan, for real. Chip, cuties. Toby reacted to Reed saying, you guys are so pretty, I can't. Saying, Fouch. Good, shut up.
Shut up.
Making me blush.
Probably.
Good.
Why did that make you laugh?
I don't know, that just made me fucking laugh.
I was like, nope.
Nope.
Nope. Leave us alone. We are not pretty.
Yeah, Rita?
Stop it.
Yeah. Okay, okay, I'll just do this part again. Relief
Yeah.
burned through Techno as he met Wilbur's clear eyes. Relief has changed. Shame that it had taken just a few moments of fear to return. Fuck. Bruh.
Be quiet.
I can touch compliments. So, that's not how you're supposed to. Okay. Oh, no, I don't want to go to movie night. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. Shame that it had taken just a few moments of fear to return him to that bloody battlefield that he had abandoned long ago. Shame that he had even for a second forgotten Wilbur's face. Shame that after all his talk of change and redemption, there was still some days where violence was the only place he could run to. He was tired of it, and yet it was all he had. If a father's arms never forgot the shape of a child, then Techno's hands might always remember the shape of a curled fist. The thought terrifying him almost as much as looking Wilbur's face did. Did you hit me? Wilbur asked quietly, looking up at Techno through wet lashes. I don't remember. Techno, why did you hit me? It wasn't you, Techno wanted to shout, and it wasn't me. But his trident was still a breath away from cutting into Wilbur's skin. I'm sorry, Techno rasped, feeling as if he just ran the entire circumference
Mm-hmm.
of the goddamn world. Is it you? Is it you now? Wilbur blinked drowsily as if coming out from long sleep. Of course it's me, Techno. Who else could it be? Techno felt like fight drained from him an instant. He drew his trident back and offered his free hand to Wilbur. The silver scars running through his palms like the invisible... Huh? Like the invisible... that sentence is correct, is it? The silver scars running through his palms like the invisible the webs that kept him forever bound to the Brotherhood. Isn't it the invisibility, the webs that kept him forever bound to his Brotherhood?
I actually don't know. They both don't sound right to me.
I'll just continue. Come on, Techno said softly. We have a god to kill. Wilbur's eyes hardened with resolve even as he smiled at Techno. Foretell me. Techno repeated as Wilbur took his hand. Everything that came before already forgotten. It was an interlude, nothing more, and they were on the same side again. This was right. This was their fate. No matter what else was dictated. Wilbur was on his feet, swaying slightly. He eyed Techno oddly. Snowflakes caught in the tangles of his dark hair. Could have been one of his mother's paintings, standing like that in the middle of the frozen city. Immortalized in a way Techno could never be. And then, with furrowed brows, he pulled Techno into a warm embrace. Techno stiffened in surprise, but soon sunk into the comforting circles of Wilbur's arms. His wounded shoulder screamed with the effort of returning his gentle hold. Techno? Wilbur whispered into Techno's sunset hair, breathing in the lingering scent of flowers long rotten. Will? Techno whispered back. Once spent, Wilbur said shakily. An ending cannot be restored, and he...
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
No!
Once spent, Wilbur said shakily. An ending cannot be restored, and he plunged the dagger straight into Techno's back. Not a dagger. The dagger. The dagger that had stopped a young prince's heart. The dagger that had once lived in a blood god's bandolier. The dagger that had been a part of a collection gifted by an angel of death. It had been passed between them all, their fingers all leaving invisible marks on his carved handle, and now it was in Wilbur's hand. He heard a soft, distant exhale of surprise as carved through the man he once called brother. The dagger's final scabbard. The cycle was complete. The curtains were drawn close. All Wilbur could do was scream at an empty stage. Techno's life had not been the easiest thing in the world. He had been in more battles than he could count and more wars than anyone deserved. His body bore the evidence of tiresome existence. He could still feel Wilbur's worried eyes tracing the cross-stitched pattern of scars on his back, though even more ran under the cover of his clothes. He'd been burned, beaten, and shot, and he had felt every type of blade under the sun pierce his godly skin, and all this hurts combined still could not compare to the pain that went through him as he felt Wilbur's embrace slacken and Techno fell to the ground, ruby blood staining his soft white snow beneath him. His blood that Wilbur had drawn. His breath quickened, and as the agony tore through him, gods were not built to suffer this anguish, but even as he lay there feeling both cold and fire at once, he could hear the green god's voice in his head, not the chorus of the voice, but a memory that felt more ancient than their eternal cycle. Mortal hearts can only take so much hurt, Techno groaned, shutting his eyes to the sudden piercing pain. Immortal hearts aren't much different, especially if they've been foolishly given to the wrong people. Was this it then? Was this a heartbreak? A shadow eclipsed all sunlight. Techno forced himself to open his eyes and found Wilbur standing over him with a knife in his hand, still dripping with Techno's blood and still rusted with Tommy's. Wilbur kept it, the symbol of Techno's greatest mistake, the thing that had killed one brother and had nearly shattered the other. Wilbur had kept it. And all at once Techno knew Wilbur had not forgiven him. And if Wilbur could not forgive him, who could? Who would? He could search the entire universe and the answer would still be the same. No one. A sob of pain, violent and sudden and unfamiliar, escaped Techno's trembling mouth. No one at all. Wilbur tilted his head to the side as he considered Techno laying in the snow. He went to Techno's side and kneeled there, as if he might provide comfort, though the light had once again fled from behind his eyes. But whether it was him or the green god calling the tune now, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore beyond the pain. Techno felt his shoulder shake and a beat later realized he must be laughing, a bitter, angry sound. The last will of a bird struck from the sky. He still somehow had his trident in his hand, but he let it go. He let everything go once he saw Wilbur raise his arms high. Good. Guillotine him? Guillotine. A guillotine about to drop on the wickedest criminal the world had ever seen. It's alright, Techno whispered to the brother. He knew he was still somehow listening somewhere. I won't hurt you again, it's over. His heart stuttered out its final pulse. I'm never going to hurt anyone again. Techno thought Wilbur's hand must have trembled a bit, but it could have been his own vision fading or a trick of the dying light. It's alright, Techno repeated softly, believing with everything he had left in him. It is not your fault. The dream's voice, were strangely silent, and Techno felt its absence with bitter relief. Here at last was eternal quiet. Look me in the eyes. Let him look me in the eyes, Techno demanded. At least give me that. The soft brown shade of Wilbur's eyes, so bright in the fading sunlight, was the last thing the god of blood saw before the dagger dropped. Phil's blade dug into and through the green god's shoulder. Emerald eyes widened with surprise as Phil's kept going until the sword pierced through the rubble, and then the earth beneath pinning the god into the ground. It was not the unbreakable fetters the best deserved that it would have to do as a restraint. Red blood, even he bleeds red. Phil's thought bloomed through the dirt, white cloth of Dream's tunic, and ran down in rivulets into the stones below. Philsa loosened his grip on the hilt of the sword and let go completely. That should keep you still for a while, said Philsa, stepping back from his makeshift prisoner. The green god eyed the blade with annoyance, trying to rise and then flinch with pain before turning his glare to the man that had bound him, however temporary to the earth. I could still ruin him from here, Dream mused darkly. It would only take one flick of my wrist. Wilbur isn't that weak, Philsa replied coldly before turning his back on his enemy. He isn't weak at all. His wings spread wide. He could see in the distance two figures in the snow, one lying, one kneeling. Philsa would not be too late again. Choosing to run away then, aren't we? The green god shouted after him. I'm choosing my son, Philsa answered, and he was gone. It took exactly 4 seconds for the angel of death to close the gap. 1. The blood god murmured his less assured to the king with a vengeance poised over his heart. 2. As infinitesimal as the breath of the smallest creature ever born from Stardust, the dagger began to shake in the ruined king's hand. A frown began to tug at the corner of the green god's lips, an unfamiliar shape. For once he realized he might actually have to put in some effort. 3. Despite all, despite everything, despite the angel of death's distant shout, despite the cracks in the wall, the dagger still plunged forward, but Philsa was there. His hand closed around his son's wrist, and his weapon's defiant arc, a hair's breadth away, Techno steel. Fuck. His hand closed around his son's wrist, ending his weapon's defiant arc, a hair's breadth away, Techno's steel chest. The father and his hair kneeled on opposite side of the blood god, the dagger trembling between them as they fought for dominance. Wilbur to push and wound Philsa to seize and protect. Wilbur raised his severe S-E-F-E-R-E.
I can't even spell right now. I can't help. I can't.
Severe, yeah. Glare at the disruption. You were not meant to be here, he growled, the words not his own. But I am, Philsa said quietly, tightening his hold on Wilbur. Drop the dagger, Will. Wilbur's eyebrows furrowed as he pushed harder against Philsa. You should hate him, Wilbur drawled. He brought Tommy to the battlefield. The man that killed Tommy meant to kill him. You should hate him, he repeated more strongly, a hint of emotion finally creeping into his voice. Was it anger? Was it grief? Was there a difference between them? Techno took a rattling breath, but did not speak. Do you? Philsa asked gently. Do you hate him, Wilbur? Yes, Wilbur said, and then quieter. No. He closed his eyes suddenly as if in pain. What I mean, no. He killed my brother, but I killed my brother too. We all killed him. The three of us, all of us are at fault. When he opened his eyes again, they shone with tears. But if I kill you too, then who will be left to forgive me? Yourself, Philsa replied slowly, inching the dagger up away from Techno. Wilbur let him. You can't forgive yourself, Will, because I already forgive you, no matter what you do to me. You don't mean that, Wilbur said gravely. You can't mean that. In response, Philsa tenderly raised Wilbur's hand towards his chest until the dagger's pointed rest over where his heart had beating. Let me prove it then. For a moment, Wilbur only looked at him, his hand trembling in Philsa's hold, and then he said, He's in my head, his grip tightening around the hilt as warm tears spilled over his filled cheeks. He's everywhere, he began, pushing the blade forwards. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Philsa smiled sadly as the dagger's sharp point found skin and drew blood. This isn't This isn't your fault. It will never be your fault. Blood bloomed and spilled over like the roots of plant breaking facets in the quit face. The pain, it was secondary. With his son pushing a dagger into his heart, Filsa said, I will love you forever. Wilbur's expression crumpled. Father, he gasped and dropped the dagger. Before he could fall into the snow, Techno was rising to his knees, his arms going around Wilbur. He pulled the mortal king into a tight embrace, and Filsa for the first time saw the wound in his back. Techno had gotten worse injuries, Filsa knew, but this was different. It must hurt like hell to even breathe with it. But Techno held onto Wilbur regardless, as if letting go was fate worse than death. Wilbur in turn buried his face into Techno's bloody shoulder, his own arms slack at his sides as he fell apart. He gave a strangled gasp, and then he was crying in earnest, trembling with the force of his misery. Phil's heart cracked just a little bit more at the sound. I'm sorry for hurting you, Wilbur whispered, his words muffled against Techno's hair and interrupted every syllable by sob that came from deep within him. I'm sorry for everything. Hey, Techno's voice was uncharacteristically soft. Consider payback for me breaking your nose. I don't want payback, Wilbur sighed as he leaned into Techno's embrace. He looked so small and grateful, a glass figurine of a boy. I just want to go home. I want to bury my little brother. Philsa couldn't see Techno's face, but knew it must look as shattered as Philsa felt. I want that too, Techno said. We'll do it together, alright? Okay, Wilbur breathed. You and me. Me and you, Techno repeated. Aw, a distant voice cooed. That's sweet.
Fuck off, Dream!
Techno and Wilbur broke apart, bloodstained and still ready to fight on. As they turned towards the disrupting sound, Philsa felt his pulse jump as he followed their cold glares towards the far building, where a green-eyed god stood on top of a rubble, bleeding from his shoulder but otherwise unscathed. He held Phil's sword in one hand and gave it a casual spin, splattering blood across the snow before him, before stepping forward, his gait unhurried. There was a shuffle as Techno Philsa placed himself in front of Wilbur. The green god rolled his eyes as he continued to stalk forwards. Come on, there's no need for that. You've already flung me from his head. That little threat is severe.
Severed.
Completely. He rolled his eyes in exasperation. It would have been fun if you killed each other though. What a tragic ending. You would have ruined him. He considered them with a thoughtful tilt of his head. I could still use Techno though. No, you can't. No. I'm done with you and your little voices have been for years. You fancy yourself immune to me then? Dream smirk? There are more ways than one to control someone, you know. The realization was slow but steady, coming gradually to Philsa like tides crawling towards the shore, and then all at once it struck him. Control me then, he said suddenly, rising to his feet and meeting the green god's stare. Go on. Dream narrowed his eyes at him with something blazing to life behind it. Carefully lax expression, layers and layers, and Philsa was going to tear them all down. The truth was there. It was so close. He could feel the weight of it in his hand. There were stories before of the green god being afraid of you, Techno had said. Phil had known of those stories, and he'd spent decades since asking why. Why him? What did he have? He's going to find out very soon. Phil, what are you doing? Techno hissed from behind him. Just asking a question, Phil's.
Why does my time have to be up? No.
Riri left. Get Riri back.
I think Regan's time's out.
Yeah, my time's out.
Regan, you can still hear us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You've tried to pull Technostring. You've used Wilbur against us. You've been a voice in their heads for years, mocking us all from afar. But you've never been in mine. Why is that, Dream? He said, name deliberately lacing each letter with poisonous intention. Why is that? The arrogance slipped off the green god's face, replaced with a tempered viciousness. Philsa had the distinct impression that he was facing a wild beast kept on a freight leash. He was treading on dangerous territory. Every instinct screamed to be careful and to draw back. Instead, Philsa approached without caution. You are afraid of me, he said. You are afraid of what I am and what I have, and that pisses you off, doesn't it? It angers you to know what I am. You can never be. What you take, I give. What you ruin, I restore. With a deft maneuvering of his boot, Filsa flicked the bloody dagger by his feet up towards him. Filsa snatched it out of the air without missing a beat. I am your antithesis. Uh? Antithesis? Yeah. Antithesis. A person or the thing that's direct opposite of someone or something else. The green god began to laugh, but it was a delicate sound. You are nothing, he said scornfully. Take Wilbur and run. You know, Filsa, Techno said, stumbling to Filsa's side with his trident back in his hand. After all these years, I thought you finally get it through your thick skull that I don't take any orders from you. Before Filsa could protest, Wilbur had walked up to the other side, an arrow already knocked into his bow, fierce clarity in his dark eyes. He gave his father a grim nod. We started this together, said Wilbur. We end together too. But your injuries. Techno shrugged his bleeding shoulder. Flesh wounds at best. I almost killed you, Wilbur said dryly. That doesn't sound right. Must have been a different, much weaker blood thought. It would have been a more believable reflection if pain had not flickered across his face as he said it. Now look sharp, your majesties. The enemy approaches. Enemy is such a strong word, the green god mused. We are old friends after all. Old friends. Oh, said Wilbur. Shut the fuck up. And let his arrow fly. What? I need water. I cried. I lost my water.
Calculations were off.
So loud.
Huh?
Oh my
What?
god. Did she die?
You're pissing me off! Like, that's all I heard!
Oh, I forgot to double that.
Perfect timing, Mom.
Amazing. Duh. Okay, it missed, obviously. The green god was a wickedly fast bastard, and Wilbur had barely been aiming. He had fired for the sake of firing, just to have his hands do damage to someone that
3, 2, 1, go!
Dream danced easily out of harm's way, only to find the angel of death flying towards him, slashing out with bloody dagger. Dream parried with father's own sword and jumped back, and was met by Techno striking out with his trident. The green god ducked and dodged under Techno's barrage? Rage?
I know the
Dyslexia.
word. I can't. I know the word.
I can pronounce it!
Barrage.
Yeah, barrage!
It's it.
Barrage.
Knew it!
I thought you can't hear me!
Each movement fluid like a candle dancing in the gentle air. In the lull between Techno's attacks, Dream spun on his heel with his sword, cleaving the space between the three of them. Father leaped?
Yeah, leaped or leapt.
Leapt backwards, but Techno dropped to the ground instead, sweeping its leg out in an attempt to trip their opponent. The green god jumped over him just as Wilbur let another arrow fly, this time with every intention of aiming it straight through the pale column of Dream's neck. But Dream simply grabbed the arrow out of thin air, snapping it in half with his thumb and tossing it over his shoulder before he even landed back down on the snow. Techno scrambled to his feet to meet Dream's renewed offensive, but Wilbur could tell even from afar that his movements were sloppy and sluggish. Despite his posturing, the wounds Wilbur had inflicted on him had cut deep, and not a second went by without Wilbur remembering the way the blade had slipped so easily into Techno's back. Whatever he said of a god's invisibility, they still bled the same way mortals do. Even now, Wilbur could feel the voices the green god The green god's little spiders lurking in the edge of his consciousness, just waiting for him to let his guard down again. They only seem to strike when Will when he was falling asleep or when he was caught in the tides of his own emotion. It explained how he'd been to places he didn't remember walking to, or witnessed things he shouldn't have, or done things he never would do when he was fooling himself. He could still see Tommy's face in his mind, eyes trembling in Scott as Wilbur stood over him with a shard of glass. "Will, please don't hurt me," he said then, the same way Techno had whispered, "It's alright, it's not your fault." Too many times had Wilbur been used against the people he loved the most. Tommy, Techno, his kingdom, his father, all to serve the Green God's end. Puppets on strings, all of them were. But if Dream wanted him to dance, then Wilbur was going to give him one hell of a closing act. He was running low on arrows and the gods were moving too fast for his mortal eyes to catch. So he threw both bow and quiver away. He rushed towards where his rapier sat in the snow, his intricate pommel glinting an invitation. The weapon slipped easily into his hand. It was an extension of his fury, and they joined the fray together. What?
Yeah. Your thing made a kissy noise.
Yeah.
When you opened it, it made a weird kissy noise. He's like, "Mwah! I did it again!"
I'm so fucking dumb. Oh my god. Good. Techno had almost forgotten how well he and Filsa fought together. They slipped into old familiar rhythms, like the ebb and flow of the ancient ocean. Ocean? Jesus Christ. The years fell away and Techno... Myriad? Techno was back in one of the myriad battlefields they decimated
Yes.
when they were younger and more foolish. Filsa struck when Techno withdrew, and Techno stepped between Filsa and the enemy when he struck back, taking the brunt of the attack with the silver shaft of his trident. It rattled him down to his bones, but the jolt was welcome. It was a welcome rush, making Techno grin despite the screaming pain of his fresh wounds. Why was it that Techno felt most alive when he was fighting death? The green god must have seen the gleam in his eyes because he stepped away from Techno with a knowing smirk. "Enjoying yourself, blood god?" the voice taunted. Techno thought of Tommy and Wilbur and his lost, nameless siblings. "I will," Techno replied, throwing his trident in a fierce arc across the frozen grounds. To avoid it, the green god stepped to the side, straight into Filsa's path. Filsa had his dagger brandished, ready to make the killing blow, ready to claim another life, and then Dream leapt upwards. The dagger passed harmlessly under his feet, which kept soaring higher and higher. "Aw, god damn it all," Techno groaned. "The bastard can fly?"
Of course!
Of course he can!
Main character vibe.
Main character 5.
Oh my god.
He hovered in the sky suspended no strings. Techno could see no raven wings like Filsa either. He simply floated in the air, almost casually, as if it was a simple stroll through the woods. He caught Techno's eyes and smiled. Techno cursed himself for his naivety. The man could restructure the very fabric of the universe. Of course he could fly. Filsa's shoulder tensed as he gazed up at the green god in his lackadaisical... What the fuck is less...
A daisical?
No. Lackadaisical, lacking enthusiasm and determination, carelessly lazy.
Okay.
Filsa's shoulders tensed as he gazed up at the green god in his lackadaisical fight. "The sky is my domain, Dream," Filsa drawled. A shiver went down Techno's spine. The angel of Death's words were as so cold as the tundra around them. "You dare trespass?" The green god crossed his arms behind his head and adopted a thoughtful expression. "Nothing in this realm is yours. Keep Filsa. Not the sky, not the earth, You sent on and not your family, he scoffed derisively. I thought I already made that abundantly clear. Phil's wings spread about to take flight. Techno turned towards the voice and turned towards. He would always turn towards his voice. Wilbur was running up towards him with a sword gripped tight in his hand. He made a single motion with the other, and Techno understood at once. He crouched and cupped his hands over his knees. He gritted his teeth and braced for impact as Wilbur neared his brows drawn together in focus. And then Wilbur was stepping into the cradle of Techno's hand, a heavy yet steady weight in the space of a heartbeat. Techno straightened, pouring all of his remaining strength into his arms, and he drew. Before Filter could even lift his foot off the ground, Wilbur was soaring over him, as fast as lethal as one of his own arrows. He raised his rapier high over his head, its sharp point cleaving through the air. Techno saw the green god's eyes widen in surprise right before Wilbur collided with him and sent both of them crashing to the ground. In a blur of blades and tangles of flailing limbs, Techno rushed towards where they fell, wrenching his trident out from the ground as he passed it. By the time he skidded to a halt before the green god, Wilbur already had him pinned to the ground with the tip of his rapier between his throat. Wilbur pried the hilt of Phil's sword out of the god's grip and offered it back to its owner without taking his dark eyes off the enemy, just like Techno taught him.
Fuck, idiot Regan. Okay.
A long scratch running down the length of his cheek was the only evidence of his fall. Philza took his sword back with a confused glance at Techno. When did Will become an acrobat? He asked incredulously.
Yep. Incredulously.
Wilbur wiped the blood from his cheek with the back of his free hand and replied, "My father's avian god genetics passed over me, so I had to compensate. When you can fly, you learn how to jump as high as you can." Poetic, Techno drawled. But a lie. I taught him that maneuver to run from diplomats. I never used it until now, though, Wilbur grumbled defensively, and then quieter, snitch. Techno gave him a quiet smile only a handful of people had ever witnessed, like a miracle. Tommy had once said of it, like a goddamn fucking miracle, that smile. How many times, the green god asked Riley, cutting the fragile levity into shreds. Must you pin me down before you realize it's all futile? Wilbur glared, as many times as it takes. Go on then, Dream sighed, tilting his head back to bare his throat to them. Kill me, or have a crisis of morals about killing me. Your choice, really. We've been here before. You've come this close before, though. Not one step further. Why? Filter asked. What stopped us? The gods everyone's eyes glinted like chunks of broken ice. Something stirred in Techno's gut, a sudden reaction to an ancient nameless fear. Techno's hand settles Wilbur's shoulder. Something was wrong, or something was gay. Someone was going to... Shut up! Or someone was going to be wrong very soon, and he needed to get Wilbur out of here like Phil's had intended. He could see Phil's hand in his periphery, holding tightly to his sword. He could tell. He felt it too. The war was over. The winner was decided, had been decided long ago. I don't like that sentence. Like I said, the green god smiled at Phil and only at Phil. It would only take one flick of my wrist. He raised a hand, a single pale hand dusted with melting snow and half-dried blood, and in the end that really was all it took. Their froze had finally settled over them, a change in the air, a new page turning, a hushed shuffle as the new audience settled into their seats for another show, another loop, another story, another life. Wilbur turned to Techno with wide eyes.
Forgot they were in here.
The rapier fell from his grip as he opened his mouth in a silent shout. Philza, Techno thought. Philza, help! But Philza was made of stone, and the world ended in silence, and they lived happily ever after. That's it?
What?
Wilbur glanced.
Oh.
Shut up.
What? Shit.
That's it? Wilbur glanced up from his instrument with furrowed brows. What do you mean? He asked as he lowered his violin from his chin and gazed at the woman sitting across from him, her heavy skirt spinning around her in cerulean tight.
Thank you, Cass.
Cerulean. Cool.
Told you I can't.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
get
it's a color,
jumbled
okay.
up the letters.
Okay.
Like I
it's a
think I
ru-
know that word, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a color apparently. Thank you,
Yeah.
Riri.
Yeah.
A cerulean type. She did not meet his confused stare. Her attention was fixed entirely on the easel in front of her, turned slightly away from him, so all he could see were random splotches of color. Paint stained her hands and hair and skin deep indigos and soft blues at the dark browns of the eyes. They were his inheritance from her. Mother considered her canvas in silence for a few seconds before making a gentle
Fuck.
You stopped playing all of a sudden, she murmured absently. I thought the song was finished. It's not, Wilbur said. Just like your painting isn't either. She shot him a rueful smile. When did you get so cheeky? When you weren't looking, I suppose. He pointed his violin bow accusingly at her. And I only stopped because you interrupted me. I did not interrupt you. I would never. She tucked the stray hair behind her ear, leaving a golden streak of paint across her cheek in the process before turning back to her painting. You remember the rules for the art tower, don't you, my boy? Wilbur rolled his eyes affectionately at her. The art tower had been his mother's idea, and her first mistake had been allowing a 10-year-old Wilbur to name it. It was the east tower of the castle, and it was meant to be a place just for the two of them. A place where Wilbur could play as loud and as badly as he wanted, and where Mother could accidentally spill jars of paint without ruining some random priceless artifact. A place where stringing instruments hung on the wall instead of morning stars and swords, worn easels stood in place of suits and armor. It was a tower and was full of art, thus following young Wilbur's stream of consciousness, the art tower. Older, Wil- Older Wilbur would have chosen something a bit more tasteful. He would name it after the massive archway window that let in the softening morning light, or the daffodils that grew at the sills or the white lace curtain dancing in the breeze like the veil of a bridesmaid of air. But it would be Art Tower now and forever. Tommy would never let him live it down. I'm not hearing any music, Mother hummed. Wilbur sighed lovingly as he put his violin back on his chin. The things I do for you, Mother. Her eyes crinkled at the corners as she gave him a dazzling smile. If you finish your song, she said, I'll let you peek at the canvas. That's bribery. You're bribing your son, your own sweet boy. She tossed her head back in a laugh, brown and gray ringlets falling over her shoulders. Dance for me, my puppet, she chortled. She waggled. There it is again!
God.
She chortled! She wagged the fingers that weren't holding the painting brush in some vague approximation of puppetry. Dance! Wilbur shook his head and raised his eyes to the heavens. All right, he said. From the top then. He put the bowstring back and began to play again. A shadow fell over Techno as a giggle interrupted the sound of the forest. Chasing the bird back to the nest, without opening his eyes, Techno said, I know it's you. Another giggle, quieter this time, as if she wasn't trying to swallow back her childish glee. Papa wants you home, she said cheerfully. You're in big trouble. Sure, Techno drawled sarcastically. And you aren't a little brat. Hey, that's rude. Papa said you weren't allowed to be rude to me anymore. Techno felt something against his ribs. That might have been a kick or a gentle breeze. He smiled to himself as he finally cracked one eye open to look at his little sister. She was pouting, arms crossed and brows furrowed, as if she could ever be terrifying to him. She intimidated him as much as the humble bee drifting drowsily overhead, so close Techno could reach out and trap it between his cupped hands, but instead he stayed where he was, arms folded under his head, the grass beneath him as soft as a bed of hay. Papa really does want you home, don't you? Reiterated. Even as she dropped onto the ground beside him and laid her little head against his chest, her twin rays like pink snakes coiling across his torso. Techno leveled his breathing so she could stay lying there peacefully, as if she were a wild animal that could be spooked away with one wrong move. But though she did have some of the wilderness in her, there was no doubt in his mind that she was fearless. 6 years old, and Techno already knew that she would someday rule the world, and he would be the proudest older brother on the Techno, she asked pensively after a moment of comfortable silence. There was seldom a different kind of silence between the two of them. In a family of loud, loving parents and louder, more annoying siblings, he and his youngest sister had managed to carve out a space for themselves, where they did not need to shout to be heard. She was gazing up at the foliage above them.
Foliage.
Foliage
Hmm?
above them. Her face dotted with the sunlight that punctured stubbornly through the leaves, unwilling to let their route to the earth be interrupted by anything less than a fellow star child. Do you ever feel like, she began haltingly, like your spirit is too big for your own body? Nah, Techno replied after serious consideration. My spirit likes where it is just fine. She rolled over to fix him with her piercing blue eyes, looking annoyed as if Techno had failed some sort of test. He did not even know he was taking. Well, I feel like that sometimes, she declared imperiously. How could you not? You're so small, of course your spirit would want to break out there. You're suffocating it. I feel like a frog sometimes too, she continued in a nonsensical way that young children often bounce from the heaviest subjects to the lightest without warning or prolonged fun. Techno missed having what kind of power, the power to simply not give it them. Mama and I went to the village yesterday and it rained, so we had to stop under a tree, so we wouldn't get wet. And I found 3 frogs running by in the rain. 3 frogs, Techno. Have you ever seen the frogs all at once? Never. Techno lied easily. That's the rarest
Occurrence. Oh.
Okay, I'm butchering that word, thank you.
I don't know the word.
I know it, but it's.
Occurrence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's
occurrence.
That's the rarest occurrence in the world, I think. As rare as a quadruple rainbow. I think the gods might be sending you a sign. And the frogs, she barreled on, seeming to give no head to Techno's reply. They're just jumping one puddle to another, splish, splash, splish, splash. But I don't think they liked any of the puddles because they didn't stay in one for too long. Splish, splash, on to the next adventure. Adventure, huh? Techno mused. Is that what your spirit wants then? To break out for a great big adventure? I don't know what my spirit wants to do when it gets out. When, Techno noted. Not if. What she wanted, she would get. And Techno was always the instrument for it. But, she added, getting to her feet, right now I think I'd rather not get scolded by Papa, so let's go home. And she smiled. That smile that ran in Techno's family and seemed to find him. The only exception was a smile Techno thought that wars be fought for. It was a smile that could burn his whole damn forest down. The gods took all the good things they had ever created and stitched it into the corners of that smile. Techno couldn't help but smile back, rougher on the edges and made of meaner stuff. He got to his feet and held out his hand for his sister. She placed her tiny palm in his. It was the most precious thing Techno would ever hold. Let's go home. Let's go home, he echoed. Oh, we're not even close to... We're not even halfway done.
Are you serious?
Yet.
Bruh.
Oh god. Where was I? Fuck.
We'll have to do another stream. That's what Reed
Right.
just said. I think that
Yeah.
would be the best, actually. Ah!
My heart. My heart.
Susie.
I have, like, when I scroll down, right, I've read some things, and I don't know if we're gonna like it.
Why do they have to bring us brothers and sisters into this? No! His sister!
Oh no, I know what's gonna happen.
I know! I know what's gonna happen. That's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
Vega, do you want
Oh.
to stop now or continue until you're 4 hours live?
I only have 10 minutes till I should end.
I know you have 10 minutes, right? That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I best stop now then.
Yeah, I'm not gonna continue the other paragraph.
Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa.
Why? It's so sad. It's so sad. Oh.
Turn back time.
Oh, oh.
Oh!
Reed, I don't know when you came, but I say hi if you're still here. Oh, no.
Take the skin from that skin.
Oh.
Oh no, I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm not going to read further
Not
yet.
reading it.
Oh. Fuck. I want to stay with these people though.
There.
It makes me so sad.
Feels a Rolled Apple. That's where we're starting off next
Okay.
time. No, I'm gonna make a text channel for reading.
Mm-hmm.
I need a feather. I have to go down and kill a chicken and spawn another one.
Ba-dum.
Is that? There we go. I don't know if I can't.
Good.
Okay,
Ooh.
they're just quiet.
I think. Oh no, I don't like it.
I think no, never mind.
Actually, I do.
Yo, make up your mind, bro.
Well, I don't. Okay, hold on. I'll show you.
I'm gonna open OBS. I think I want to stream. What are we gonna stream, eh?
I don't know. What are you gonna stream?
I don't know.
So, okay.
Oh. Wait, I kinda like it?
I added this. That.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be my skin tone, obviously.
Wait, what is that skin for?
Yeah.
For? Message it to me. I wanna know. Looks good.
I'm so close. So, we need enchants for these. I need 2 more tridents.
I mean.
Oh, wait, you were serious. Oh, fuck.
See, look, I don't like it like that though. It seems too. I
Emeralds
don't know.
and
Maybe
potions
I
for
just
that.
don't like this.
Finish the emeralds. Need more netherite. We still got
Yeah,
a lot
'cause
to
see,
do,
look,
boys.
I
added
don't
it
like
back.
it either.
But I don't like this either. That's the problem.
I have more things I need to do and make and write. But
The shoulder color.
we'll do that all later.
That's a part of
Might work on prepping some more things and doing some planning and stuff before next stream. But
Wait, that's
yeah, I'll see you later. Let me.
that's the coat. Or the cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing in the front is still part of the dress.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah. No,
This
then I
is
would.
necklace.
Yeah. Oh, it's a necklace.
Yeah. I was gonna
Do
make it.
purple.
I was gonna make it just this color. Oh, it's not gonna show.
But that doesn't add up with your character, though.
Here. Yeah, I was gonna make it this color, but I think that's too much color. What did Riri say? Oh, and we're gonna go live after or before.
I can go live. What are we going to do live?
I don't know.
just chatting first, and then we go into
Yeah. Because I want to finish this because the thing acts up sometimes.
yeah. Let's see. Let me mute everything as first.
Oh god.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find some music.
So we're gonna wait for Elleen to go live and then I'll raid her. Honestly, I need more feathers. There. We'll dump all this in here.
And YouTube needs to go up.
Good.
Throw that in there.
I'll go live reading.
Yeah, alright. I have so much just random shit. Okay, we're gonna take all these buckets and minecarts and just put them in the community house because I cannot handle this. I never know if she just goes quiet or she's.
Me too.
Oh, okay.
She went quiet. Okay.
Yeah, Ria, I'm live.
Okay, so she's live. So if I go to raid, not.
I'm just doing a 5-minute wait, and then I'll continue.
TC.
I'm also going to the bathroom real quick.
It's not showing she's live yet. We gotta just wait. Eh. Dump all this stuff in my flippin' inventory. I can decide what I want to take. Okay, I just got the notification that she's live. What? Why won't it let me raid you? Why won't it let me raid her? What? Ugh. How long will it take? Let me raid my bestie. Come on. What's wrong with it? It's stupid.
Hey, come back. You've made me think my thing was broken.
Oh, I'm sorry. I needed to pee really bad.
No, not that.
Oh, what?
The sounds you were making made me think my fucking.
Let me raid my friend.
I should.
Sorry, I didn't mean to join.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I.
Can I raid her now?
You know what it is. Like a yellow.
Why won't it? Why won't it let me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god! Oh my. I now have my okay. I now have my
It's-
sub badges in front of my name. It's so cute.
Oh.
Okay.
Let me.
After
Sis,
this, we should go into just vibing live.
it won't let me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Good. Aww.
There we go. That took way too long.
We're going to live.
Yeah. Go. She'll do stuff. I might pop in for a little bit before work, but
Thank you for the
but-
raid.
there you go. She thanked me before I sent it.